fix that real quick. There we go. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to LTMB Live. Let the madness begin. So glad to be here. This is a special edition of LTMB Live. We're going to be going over some analysis from the fourth Democratic presidential debate that was held last night, Tuesday night. So we have a lot to get to. We are broadcasting live on YouTube, Twitch, and Periscope Live. So thank you for everybody who is joining us tonight. We know more will follow as the evening continues. But like I said, we have much to get to. This is going to be a broadcast without, I don't believe we're going to have any time for calls tonight. So we are going to be broadcasting again tomorrow night, and
get some calls in.
If anything goes as planned, I expect that we will have time for calls. We will try to respond to some, maybe some comments, some questions in the chat if we have some time to do that. But like I said, we have a lot to get to. Again, noting that it was the Democratic debate. So any, I guess, general impressions, just, you want to preface our analysis real quick? I don't know if I have anything to preface it with.
One thing I kind of suspected before going into this debate was Pete Buttigieg and what kind of demeanor he might have, because he was running ads before the debate. I don't know if it was that day, but I saw some ads the day before going after Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, where he referred to Medicare for all as like against freedom or something and democracy. I can't remember the exact phraseology, but it was something to that effect. So I'm paraphrasing. He says it's against like freedom and democracy. It's against people's freedom. It's taking freedom away from people. So I was like, I already knew what kind of attitude he would come in there with, and I wasn't disappointed. I mean, I was disappointed.
Right.
But
not surprised.
Yeah, not surprised. That's a better word. What I did not expect is a Elizabeth Warren-centered debate.
Well, this was the first debate which she has been, I guess, perceived as the front-runner status. Well, she has that front-runner status. That's the narrative that a lot of media commentators are going with, that she has ultimately, taken over the lead from Joe Biden. Bernie Sanders is in a distant third, depending on who's telling the story.
Depending on what poll you read.
Yeah, but Elizabeth Warren is the front runner. So yeah, it was always going to be, I guess it was always going to be interesting how this debate was going to unfold with her being in that status. Was she going to take the mantle on the debate stage and in talking time from Joe Biden, and even maybe the attacks? Is she going to be the target?
True. It's like, were the moderators going to like throw her softballs, or were they going to allow the other candidates to kind of challenge her?
Right. So these questions were definitely answered during the debate. So we're going to dive right in. All right. So there were no opening statements. This was a debate in Ohio. It was broadcasted by CNN and the New York Times. The moderators, Anderson Cooper.
What's the other chick? I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't even.
Start with a B?
I'm not even going to try. But anyway. Like I said, we can just dive right in. The first question, the first issue the candidates were asked to respond to was, of course, what's going on with President Trump right now and the impeachment inquiry. And the candidates were asked to respond to that. And specifically, they were asked, why shouldn't voters be tasked with determining President Trump's fate rather than this impeachment inquiry? So we're going to begin with this first video, and this is going to be Senator Warren and Senator Bernie Sanders responding to that question.
Senator Warren, I want to start with you. You have said that there's already enough evidence for President Trump to be impeached and removed from office. But the question is, with the election only 1 year away, why shouldn't it be the voters who determine the president's fate?
Because sometimes there are issues that are bigger than politics, and I think that's the case with this impeachment inquiry. When I made the decision to run for president, I certainly didn't think it was going to be about impeachment. But when the Mueller report came out, I read it, all 442 pages. And when I got to the end, I realized that Mueller had shown to a fare thee well that this president had obstructed justice and done it repeatedly. And so at that moment, I called for opening an impeachment inquiry. Now, that didn't happen, and look what happened as a result. Donald Trump broke the law again in the summer, broke it again this fall. You know, we took a constitutional oath, and that is that no one is above the law, and that includes the President of the United States. Impeachment is the way that we establish that this man will not be permitted to break the law over and over without consequences. This is about Donald Trump, but understand, it's about the next president and the next president and the next president and the future of this country. The impeachment must go forward.
Thank you, Senator Warren. You're all going to get in on this, by the way. Senator Sanders, do Democrats have any choice but to impeach President Trump? Please respond.
No, they don't. In my judgment, Trump is the most corrupt president in the history of this country. It's not just that he obstructed justice with the Mueller report. I think that the House will find him worthy of impeachment because of the emoluments clause. This is a president who is enriching himself while using the Oval Office to do that, and that is outrageous. And I think in terms of the recent Ukrainian incident, the idea that we have a president of the United States who is prepared to hold back national security money to one of our allies in order to get dirt on a presidential candidate is beyond comprehension. So I look forward, by the way, not only to a speedy and expeditious impeachment process, but Mitch McConnell has got to do the right thing and allow a free and fair trial in the Senate.
All right. So that is their take, Senators Warren and Sanders. Honestly, it's not much different than what I would say. I believe that, we've talked about it before, not just with this issue, this current issue with Ukraine, but we believe that this president has done many things that are worthy of an impeachment inquiry. The one thing that I would say to Bernie Sanders, again, I like both of their commentary, but with Bernie Sanders, I wish he would have went just a little bit further in what the emoluments clause is.
Yes,
because he didn't. He kind of suggested what it is, and a president enriching himself because he's the president, using his office to enrich himself. But I think he could have went just a little bit more in depth because I don't think it's common knowledge for a lot of Americans.
No, first of all, I don't even like the question. Think about the question.
Oh yeah.
Like, does that even make sense? Because if you just look at that same question but apply it to situations on a smaller scale, does it make sense if, like, the mayor was under investigation of Columbia or Irmo, the city we actually live in, if the governor was under investigation, or any public official? What kind of precedent would that set if the voters could decide whether that person gets investigated? The voters are not involved in the investigatory process or evidence gathering process. It just doesn't even make sense. That's not something we ever considered before until now. Why now? It doesn't make sense to use that logic for somebody who sits in the executive branch or any other place in government or any other place of leadership. It just doesn't even make sense. One thing I do disagree on, though, with Bernie is saying that Trump is the most corrupt. I wouldn't say he's the most. He's just a different kind of corrupt. You know what I'm saying? So, like, that's just a kind of maybe a slight disagreement.
I guess because Trump's corruption is so open. It's just so open in your face. There are really no restraints with him. He doesn't care because he believes that he can get away with whatever he does. So I guess on that scale, like who's the most openly corrupt, I would say that it was President Trump. Others have had the knowledge to do it behind closed doors.
And we're not just talking about like money in politics or being influenced by money
Right.
in politics. We're talking about things like ignoring subpoenas,
Right.
blatantly ignoring subpoenas,
Obstruction of justice.
obstruction of
Open
justice. We're talking
obstruction.
about essentially challenging the rule of law, which doesn't really happen often. And even when the rule of law is challenged, people were held in contempt, like Eric Holder.
Right.
When that whole Fast and Furious thing went down, he was held in contempt, but you know where he was? Your boy was testifying.
That's right.
So there is a difference in his corruption. I just don't know if I want to say it's the most. It's just different.
All right. So same subject. Representative Tulsi Gabbard gets involved and shares her thoughts about the impeachment inquiry.
If impeachment is driven by these hyper-partisan interests, it will only further divide an already terribly divided country. Unfortunately, this is what we've already seen play out as calls for impeachment really began shortly after Trump won his election. And as unhappy as that may make us as Democrats, he won that election in 2016. The serious issues that have been raised around this phone call that he had with the president of Ukraine and many other things that transpired around that are what caused me to support the inquiry in the House. And I think that it should continue to play its course out, to gather all the information, provide that to the American people, recognizing that that is the only way forward. If the House votes to impeach, the Senate does not vote to remove Donald Trump, he walks out and he feels exonerated, further deepening the divides in this country that we cannot afford.
Before the debate, I was feeling a little sympathy for Tulsi. You know why? Because of Bakari Sellers. And I was like, why you say that? Like, that's a go-to.
Well, we're gonna get to that too.
Yeah.
She goes into that.
Yeah. It's like, so I was like, had a little bit of sympathy for her. Because I was like, I don't think that was fair. Right before the debate, CNN host, contributor was like, we're a Russian agent. And I was like, wow. And so it's not like I was pulling for her, but I was like, I hope she has a good showing. Hope she shows me something. And this was one of the first things I was like, here we go again.
She bounced around it. She bounced around first saying that if the impeachment is being done because of hyper partisan issues and it's going to further divide the country. Is that what this is about? No, it's not about, because later on she said that she supports the impeachment inquiry. So it's not being done for hyper partisan issues. I don't understand why you included that.
Does it matter, Will? Does it really matter? If the facts are the facts, it doesn't matter who is.
But that's what she's saying.
Initiating the probe.
But she's saying that if it's hyper-partisan, it's not really on some deep issues. It's just that Democrats feel Republicans bad and they want them out of office. That's not what it is.
That could be generally true, which I can understand. That may be a generally valid point. But if we're talking about actual evidence, like concrete evidence, uncompromised evidence, all that doesn't matter. I just don't understand, because I've seen that argument before, not just from her, but from Republicans and people who are running interference for Trump, whether it be other congresspersons or his fans. When is an investigation considered partisan and when is it not? Like, are they expecting that the party that's being investigated be investigated like by their own party? That's the only way you can do investigations, I guess.
But see, again, it doesn't make sense though, because again, she says that she supports this particular impeachment inquiry. So obviously she's not for something that's, a hyper-partisan process. She's not for that. She doesn't support that. So that she does support this specific impeachment inquiry, it's on its merits. It's the right thing to do. She says she wants it to go further. She wants to see the end of it, this and that. But then at the end says that, well, if it ends up that President Trump is exonerated, I guess that's going to give him strength and that's going to aid him in his re-election bid. So it's like I said, she's just bouncing all over the place. Either you see the merits to it and you will say that, yes, I support it, because this is a lawless president. He has broken his, he has violated his office. He has violated his oath, this and that. There's evidence there because it's out in the open.
But he got
elected. This is what we
must
do.
Will. He got elected. People elected him. So that should shield him from being held accountable because people elected him. Like, what kind of argument is that? Like, do you really think that's a rational argument? So basically what she's saying is, actually, no matter who it is, it wouldn't just apply to Trump, because remember what Senator Warren said about this is not just about Trump, it's about what other people, future presidents.
Yeah.
So again, you're setting a precedent here with that kind of position. You're saying that, like, if you're elected and the people elected you, people should be hands off as far as holding you accountable for anything because, hey, you were elected. That doesn't fly for the executive branch. It doesn't fly for any other, I guess, official government position.
All right, so moving on. Of course, in an extension of the impeachment conversation, Ukraine definitely was going to come up, and it was definitely going to come up for former Vice President Joe Biden. So he was asked the question about his son, Hunter Biden, being on that Ukrainian board, the gas company, the natural gas company in Ukraine. And I guess if that was appropriate or not. So this is how Joe Biden responded.
Mr. Vice President, President Trump has falsely accused your son of doing something wrong while serving on a company board in Ukraine. I want to point out there's no evidence of wrongdoing by either one of you. Having said that, on Sunday, you announced that if you're president, no one in your family or associated with you will be involved in any foreign businesses. My question is, if it's not okay for a president's family to be involved in foreign businesses, why was it okay for your son when you were vice president? Vice President Biden?
Look, my son did nothing wrong. I did nothing wrong. I carried out the policy of the United States government in rooting out corruption in Ukraine. And that's what we should be focusing on. And what I wanted to make a point about, and my son's statement speaks for itself. He spoke about it today. My son's statement speaks for itself. What I think is important is we focus on why it's so important to remove this man from office. On the 17th, look, the fact that George Washington worried on the first time he spoke after being elected president that what we had to worry about is foreign interference in our elections. It was the greatest threat to America. This president on three occasions, has invited foreign governments and heads of government to get engaged in trying to alter our elections. The fact is that it is outrageous. Rudy Giuliani, the president, and his thugs have already proven that they, in fact, are flat lying. What we have to do now is focus on Donald Trump. He doesn't want me to be the candidate. He's going after me because he knows if I get the nomination, I will beat him like a drum.
Hold on. Sorry, I just want to follow up. Mr. Vice President, as you said, your son Hunter today gave an interview, admitted that he made a mistake and showed poor judgment by serving on that board in Ukraine. Did you make a mistake by letting him? You were the point person on Ukraine at the time. If you can answer.
Look, my son's statement speaks for itself. I did my job. I never discussed a single thing with my son about anything having to do with Ukraine. No one has indicated I have. We've always kept everything separate. Even when my son was the Attorney General of the state of Delaware, we never discussed anything. So there'd be no potential conflict. My son made a judgment. I'm proud of the judgment he made. I'm proud of what he had to say. And let's focus on this. The fact of the matter is that this is about Trump's corruption. That's what we should be focusing on.
It was long-winded. His explanation is very long-winded. We've talked about this issue with Ukraine. This is something that goes back to 2014, so this is not new. It's only new because President Trump and Rudy Giuliani, they're making it new. They're trying to infuse it back into political discourse. Now, was it a sign of corruption that Hunter Biden landed that job with the Ukrainian company? It could be. It
what
looks
kind
like
of corruption though? Like what would you label that? It's like elitism,
Yeah.
privilege,
Yeah.
nepotism,
favoritism, stuff
somebody
like that.
in government, possibly using their position to get, their son a job, or maybe his son. I say there like I don't know who I'm talking about.
Right.
Maybe Biden's son was offered the job because they knew he was, vice president. The same thing happened with, I don't know if it was GW or HW Bush when he gave Hunter a job at Amtrak. He served on the board at Amtrak. That was probably like a little fig leaf.
Right. But these are things.
To Biden.
But these things are not illegal.
Yeah.
So yeah, it looks like it is corruption, and it's probably not just that it's possible. It is probable that it's that type of corruption, but not illegal. I will say, and I've said it before though, that Joe Biden being the vice president at that time and being the point person for trying to get that prosecutor removed, that looked like a conflict of interest. You did know that your son was on the board of that company. So if you want to hit him for that, if you want to hit him for like, yo, you shouldn't have been the person to lead this, this mission to get that prosecutor removed, because it looks bad. I will attest to that. Yes, it just has the appearance of wrong. But again, there's nothing to suggest that anything illegal happened with Hunter Biden and his father, Joe Biden. But of course, this question was going to be asked on the stage. If you could make it out, that was Senator Cory Booker expressing his displeasure at these questions. He was saying that this was wrong, and then when they ultimately moved on to another question, he said, "No, we shouldn't move on. This is wrong." He was just trying to hit CNN for, I guess, the way that they asked this question, and I guess to phrase it in a way that Joe Biden has something to, I guess, explain. He has something. He has to be made to excuse his actions and his son's actions. So, like I said, it was definitely gonna make its way on.
Well, I don't even like the way the question was asked, because it was a leading question. It was kind of loaded, because Cooper was like, Trump falsely accused your son of wrongdoing, and what wrongdoing is kind of vague. You see what I'm saying? Because we can talk about how wrong it was, but are we going to talk about it being like criminal activity? I think it was wrong, but I don't think it was criminal activity.
Right.
I think personally, I don't know why I'm expecting this from Joe Biden, but he could have said, I should have advised my son, and I should have been a little bit more tactful. I should have been more smart, knowing that I was involved in some kind of diplomatic efforts with this country while you're sitting on this board. It just looks bad.
Yeah.
Like, just for the sake of not making it look like you have a conflict of interest or anything, it just wasn't a smart move. I wish he would have just said that instead of deflecting to Trump and George Washington? Did he deflect to George Washington?
Well, you mentioned Giuliani as well.
Something. You meant the first president, but I was like, he just deflected. I was like, nah, no.
All right, so large part of the discussion last night was on healthcare, as you would imagine. So the candidates did discuss Medicare for all. That is really, when you're talking about healthcare, that is the issue, or that is the policy that comes up. And so Senator Bernie Sanders, Senator Elizabeth Warren, they're always made to, I guess, explain why Medicare for all is the policy that is best for the United States of America and why it should be the one that's implemented. So I believe it was Senator Warren that got the first question on this. And specifically, she was asked about, I guess, the process in which we implement Medicare for all, and if it will lead to taxes being raised.
Senator Warren, you've proposed some sweeping plans: free public college, free universal child care, eliminating most Americans' college debt. And you've said how you're going to pay for those plans, but you have not specified how you're going to pay for the most expensive plan, Medicare for all. Will you raise taxes on the middle class to pay for it, yes or no?
So I have made clear what my principles are here, and that is costs will go up for the wealthy and for big corporations, and for hardworking middle-class families, costs will go down. The way I see this is I have been out all around this country. I've done 140 town halls now, been to 27 states and Puerto Rico. I've done 70,000 selfies, which must be the new measure of democracy. And this gives people a chance to come up and talk to me directly. So I've talked with the family, the mom and dad whose daughter's been diagnosed with cancer. I have talked to the young woman whose mother has just been diagnosed with diabetes. I've talked to the young man who has MS. And here's the thing about all of them: they all had great health insurance right at the beginning. But then they found out when they really needed it, when the costs went up, that the insurance company pulled the rug out from underneath them, and they were left with nothing. Look, the way I see this, it is hard enough to get a diagnosis that your child has cancer, to think about the changes in your family if your mom's got diabetes, or what it means for your life going forward if you've been diagnosed with MS. But what you shouldn't have to worry about is how you're going to pay for your health care after that.
Senator Warren, to be clear, Senator Sanders acknowledges he's going to raise taxes on the middle class to pay for Medicare for all. You've endorsed his plan. Should you acknowledge it too?
So the way I see this, it is about what kinds of costs middle-class families are going to face. So let me be clear on this. Costs will go up for the wealthy, they will go up for big corporations, and for middle-class families, they will go down. I will not sign a bill into law that does not lower costs for middle-class families.
You know, my immediate reaction to listening to Warren's answer, actually her two answers, because
No, it was
the
one answer.
moderator.
It was one answer.
Well, yeah.
One answer.
Two times.
Yes.
Yeah. My initial reaction was, boo! Get off the stage! Like, she can't even answer the question. It's a very specific question. Bernie has already said that, yes, taxes will be raised, not just on the wealthy, but on the middle class as well. Now, with that will come no out-of-pocket expenses. It will lead to a better situation for everybody, actually. But Warren does not seem to be able to admit the same thing. Now, she has not put forward her own healthcare policy. She says that Bernie's policy is the one that she's going with. His specific Medicare for All bill. That's the one that she's signing on to. That's the one that she wants to implement. So if that's the one that she wants to implement, and everybody knows the pathway forward to do it, and it does involve raising taxes on the middle class as well, then your reluctance to say that says what? You know, understand? Like, if you can't say that, then either I guess I'm left to assume that maybe you don't know, which
First of all, if she doesn't know, that's slack.
No,
and
that's
I don't
slack.
believe for a second she's slack.
No. So then it would either be that, or let me see. She doesn't want to say. She doesn't want to say for some reason.
Well,
Maybe she feels like it would be
because-
used against her.
Not just that. It would be used against her because it would be seen as a commitment.
Yes.
But why wouldn't you want to commit to something that you are for, something that you advocate for? Why wouldn't you want to make a commitment? To me, that says, or that strongly suggests that she is not really for Bernie's plan.
That she has no intention of
all
actually
she did
doing
was filibuster the whole time. That's why we said it was one answer, two times.
Yeah. And so because of that answer, because of her reluctance to actually respond to the question specifically, give a specific answer, she opens herself up to criticism. So the next candidate that talked about this issue was Pete Buttigieg. And so here's what he had to say.
Mayor Buttigieg, you say Senator Warren has been, quote, evasive about how she's going to pay for Medicare for all. What's your response?
Well, we heard it tonight, a yes or no question that didn't get a yes or no answer. Look, this is why people here in the Midwest are so frustrated with Washington in general and Capitol Hill in particular. Your signature, Senator, is to have a plan for everything, except this. No plan has been laid out to explain how a multi-trillion-dollar hole in this Medicare for All plan that Senator Warren is putting forward is supposed to get filled in. And the thing is, we really can deliver health care for every American and move forward with the boldest, biggest transformation since the inception of Medicare itself. But the way to do it without a giant multi-trillion-dollar hole and without having to avoid a yes or no question is Medicare for all who want it. We take a version of Medicare, we let you access it if you want to, and if you prefer to stay on your private plan, you can do that too. That is what most Americans want. Medicare for all who want it, trusting you to make the right decision for your health care and for your family, and it can be delivered
Thank you, Mayor.
without an increase
Senator,
on
your
middle-class
response?
taxes.
So let's be clear. Whenever someone hears the term Medicare for all who want it, understand what that really means. It's Medicare for all who can afford it. And that's the problem we've got. Medicare for all is the gold standard. It is the way we get health care coverage for every single American, including the family whose child's been diagnosed with cancer, including the person who's just gotten an MS diagnosis. That's how we make sure that everyone gets health care. We can pay for this. I've laid out the basic principles. Costs are going to go up for the wealthy. They're going to go up for big corporations. They will not go up for middle-class families, and I will not sign a bill into law that raises their costs, because costs are what people care about. I've been studying this, for the biggest part of my life.
Thank you, Senator.
Why people go
can the
bankrupt.
mayor respond?
Sure.
I don't think the American people are wrong when they say that what they want is a choice. And the choice of Medicare for all who want it, which is affordable for everyone because we make sure that the subsidies are in place, allows you to get that health care. It's just better than Medicare for all, whether you want it or not. And I don't understand why you believe the only way to deliver affordable coverage to everybody is to obliterate private plans, kicking 150 million Americans off of their insurance in 4 short years when we could achieve that same big, bold goal. And once again, we got to be president. We're competing to be president for the day after Trump. Our country will be horrifyingly polarized, even more than now. After everything we've been through, after everything we are about to go through, this country will be even more divided. Why unnecessarily divide this country over healthcare when there's a better way to deliver coverage for all?
I don't know which one of those two candidates is the most wrong. They're both right in a way. Buttigieg asked a valid question.
Yeah, he did.
I will say it was valid.
And she opened herself up to it.
She opened herself up to it. Now, the rest of the debate wasn't really happy with Buttigieg. He was more like a troll, but this was a valid question. And she did the same thing. So she gave the same answer for the third time. She just talked about cost. She didn't talk about taxes. All she had to say was, hey, if you're paying like $5,000 or, $8,000 in insurance premiums in a month, that will go away. That will go away. Maybe your taxes
it'll go down.
It'll go down, and maybe your taxes go up $500 or $1,000. That's a net win for families. That's all you have to say. That's all you have to say.
But she doesn't want to talk about taxes whatsoever. Again, she opens herself up to this criticism. So Pete Buttigieg, who I do not agree with on this issue, he was definitely right to criticize her on that and say that, look, you have all these other plans that are so specific, but on this one issue, for some reason, you fail to be specific. You fail to actually lay out your idea and your plan and how exactly this is going to be implemented. Now, again, that's the only thing good I will say about Pete Buttigieg's argument, because he is for Medicare for all who want it. And the positive thing that Elizabeth Warren said was that it's actually Medicare for all who can afford it, which is absolutely right, because even with Medicare that we have right now, it's still expensive. Medicare right now is a good program for seniors and people that are disabled, but it's still expensive. It's not just the reason why there are supplemental programs like Medicare supplemental programs and Medicare Advantage is because Medicare just in itself cannot work just for everybody. For wealthy people, yeah, it's fine. But for people that are living in poverty, Medicare is expensive as hell, including prescription drug coverage and all of that. It's very expensive. So it's absolutely the case that Elizabeth Warren made, in which it is still going to be Medicare for all who can afford it. We need something to eliminate out-of-pocket expenses so that everybody can actually access healthcare, can actually see their doctor, can go to the hospital and not come out bankrupted. Another part of this discussion, or another part of Pete Buttigieg's argument, is that in implementing Medicare for all, you will kick 150 million people off of their health care.
You mean their health insurance?
Well, he said health care.
Okay. You sure?
He said
I'm pretty sure he said health insurance, right?
Did he? Okay, I think I heard health care.
You sure?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, well, maybe he meant health insurance.
He's trying to portray something. This is the interesting thing about this, right? Because they all, everybody that is not for Medicare for all, basically everybody on that stage except for Bernie Sanders. I will not include Elizabeth Warren in this argument, but everybody on that stage is for something other than Medicare for all. And all of them seem to want to preserve choice in the United States of America. They want to give people choice, right? And so the 150 million people that he's talking about that are on healthcare, he's talking about employer coverage, right? Isn't he talking about employer coverage? He's talking about employer coverage, right? Hey, these people that have these employer coverage, these union-backed plans, stuff like that they have negotiated for, and this and that. Hey, we want to preserve their choice. Do they have choice, really? The employers made the choice to decide what plan they were going to give to their employees. It's not like the employees were like, you know what? Hey, true. Boss, you know what? I think I want Blue Cross this year. Can you get us Blue Cross?
Maybe Cobra?
You know what?
Maybe
yeah,
Cobra.
United Healthcare. You know, maybe some Aetna this year. You know what? I'm gonna decide for you. You know, we're gonna decide as employees, and we're gonna give it to you. Okay, that's our choice. That's not the case whatsoever. The employer makes the choice. Employees don't have any choice whatsoever. They get to decide how much they want to spend.
I remember when my job sent me that packet. It is what it was. It is what it was. Like, that packet had our choices already laid out for us, and we just chose what plan we wanted.
Exactly.
From that particular company. That's
Yes.
it. We didn't say like, hey, the company I used to work for, I'm not gonna name, but I know that enrollment period is coming soon. This is like, I guess this is me talking to my district manager or my regional manager. It's like, hey, I know enrollment is coming soon. You know, I was just inquiring about whether some of the employees that I manage can like have options, more options than last year. And I'm gonna take, kind of like a little straw poll. And so maybe we could decide which companies, we think should provide us insurance this year, this enrollment period. That shit don't happen.
That never happens. So what choice are you trying to preserve, really? This is a fallacy. This is a phony argument.
Oh yeah. Side note. When I guess you take notes.
Oh yeah, I take notes all throughout the debate.
Yeah, he takes extensive notes throughout the debate.
Yes.
You know that little thing he did, what you did when you, I guess you were just
my first reaction.
Your first
Warren.
reaction to Warren was like, "Boo!"
Yes.
Yo, that was in his notes. Yo, there was literally that joke was in his notes. It was B
like 20
like
20 or
30.
O's, yeah.
Exclamation mark.
Yeah.
Not once.
While she was talking, I was like,
Yeah.
"Boo!"
But twice. He did it twice. So it was like, "Boo!" Exclamation mark. Then like. Lying down, another boo. I was like, bro,
exactly.
You really do that?
Hand, just finger on the O, just like this, just like that. That's how dissatisfied I was. But all right, let's keep going. All right, so the next video we're gonna get to, I believe we're still gonna be, I think we're still on this healthcare issue, on this healthcare debate. So yeah, the next one is Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren talking about this issue again. You see the boo again.
That's what I see the boo again.
You see
there
the boo
it is.
again.
There it is.
All right. But yeah, Bernie Sanders gets in to this debate and talks about why we need to implement Medicare for all. What's he gonna do?
Well, as somebody who wrote the damn bill, as I said, let's be clear. Under the Medicare for all bill that I wrote, premiums are gone. Co-payments are gone. Deductibles are gone. All out-of-pocket expenses are gone. We're going to do better than the Canadians do, and that is what they have managed to do. At the end of the day, the overwhelming majority of people will save money on their health care bills. But I do think it is appropriate to acknowledge that taxes will go up. They're going to go up significantly for the wealthy. And for virtually everybody, the tax increase they pay will be substantially less than what they were paying for premiums and out-of-pocket expenses.
Well,
Senator Warren, will
way.
you acknowledge what the senator just said about taxes going up?
So my view on this and what I have committed to is costs will go down for hardworking middle-class families. I will not embrace a plan like Medicare for all who can afford it that will leave behind millions of people who cannot. And I will not embrace a plan that says people have great insurance right up until you get the diagnosis and the insurance company says, sorry, we're not covering your expensive cancer treatments. We're not covering your expensive treatments
Thank you, Senator.
for MS.
Senator
We're not covering
Klobuchar.
what you need.
This is why I had a second Boo.
I understand.
This is the same answer. How many different? This is the fourth time now?
It's the fourth time. Fourth time, same answer. Like, and she already looked bad already, right? Because the
Hashtag waffling Warren.
Wow. She already looked bad because she didn't answer it the first 2 times and the third time.
Right.
But the fourth time she answered it, it was after that same question was directed at Bernie Sanders, and Bernie Sanders just kind of masked off, came out with it.
Exactly. Because and it's so easy for him to say, look, this is a difference from 2016. We wanted him to say this in 2016, but he was kind of skittish about it. He was kind of hesitant to say it. But now he's, like you said, mask off. He's unafraid to actually give you the details. Yes, we're going to raise taxes, but you're not going to have any out-of-pocket expenses. There are not going to be any co-pays, no premiums, no deductibles. You're going to be in a better situation financially, and you will have real access to healthcare, meaning that you can actually use the healthcare. And then Elizabeth Warren goes, follows it up with the same deflecting answer that she routinely gives, and won't actually say that, yes, I'm with Bernie's plan, and yes, I understand what it's going to do through taxation, and I'm with that. No, she can't do it because, look, the only reason you have to wonder why she's unable just to admit that truth. I don't think she has any intention whatsoever in actually implementing this if she becomes the next president.
If she cannot state it plainly in a democratic debate, and actually just, be upfront about that, because she knows it's true. If she can't, do that now in a debate, this is just a debate where you can just promise anything.
You can.
Like, what makes you, me, Will, what makes y'all think that she would kind of be a very strong proponent of it when she is elected president? Like,
nothing.
Like, if I can't even trust her now and it's just a debate, the primaries haven't even happened, when you can promise anything, Obama did.
Exactly. So, again, because of Elizabeth Warren opening herself up for criticism, another centrist gets involved in the conversation and kind of goes at Elizabeth Warren, and that's Senator Amy Klobuchar.
At least Bernie's being honest here and saying how he's going to pay for this and that taxes are going to go up. And I'm sorry, Elizabeth, but you have not said that. And I think we owe it to the American people to tell them where we're going to send the invoice. I believe the best and boldest idea here is to not trash Obamacare, but to do exactly what Barack Obama wanted to do from the beginning, and that's have a public option that would bring down the cost of the premium and expand the number of people covered and take on the pharmaceutical companies. That is what we should be doing instead of kicking 149 million people off their insurance in 4 years. And I'm tired of hearing, whenever I say these things, oh, it's Republican talking points. You are making Republican talking points right now in this room by coming out for a plan that's going to do that. I think there is a better way that is bold, that will cover more people, and it's the one we should get behind.
Well. Warren has caused me to side with Klobuchar. And Pete Buttigieg. This is what Warren has made me do here. Because she is, like you said, opening herself up to these challenges because she won't come clean. Like, she could have came clean the first time, and guess what? I don't even think none of these attacks would have come.
No. It would just be. It would be thrown at both of them.
Right.
It would be thrown at the idea of Medicare for all. But Amy Klobuchar's her argument that she has a better idea and the public option will get more people covered than Medicare for all. Stop it. I don't know who you're trying to. I know what you're trying to do, but that's just a lie. All right. So we're gonna switch it up. We're gonna go to the economy and jobs. Bernie Sanders is asked about his federal job guarantee.
Senator Sanders, you say your federal jobs guarantee is part of the answer to the threat from automation. But tens of millions of Americans could end up losing their jobs. Are you promising that you will have a job for every single one of those Americans?
Damn right we will. And I'll tell you why. If you look at what goes on in America today, we have an infrastructure which is collapsing. We can put 15 million people to work rebuilding our roads, our bridges, our water systems, our wastewater plants, airports, etc. Furthermore, and I hope we will discuss it at length tonight, this planet faces the greatest threat in its history from climate change. And the Green New Deal that I have advocated will create up to 20 million jobs as we move away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. We need workers to do childcare. We need workers, great teachers, to come in to school systems which don't have the teachers that we need right now. We need more doctors. We need more dentists. We need more carpenters. We need more sheet metal workers. And when we talk about making public colleges and universities tuition-free and canceling student debt, we're going to give those people the opportunity to get those good jobs.
I think it was imperative for Bernie Sanders to include that at the end about jobs, because one of the main things that are one key issue that is, I guess, standing in the way of people getting good jobs are their inability to go to a higher learning institution. Because in this world that we live in right now, in this country that we live in right now, a college education is important if you are trying to get like a good paying job.
So what does that connect to? That connects to his other policy.
Yes.
Tuition assistance.
Right. Of course. So that's why, the two are connected. I'm glad that he added that in there.
So it kind of like, this is where him and kind of Yang clash a bit.
Yes. So Yang, you want to wait till
yeah.
All right. So Yang was asked a question about why his UBI, Universal Basic Income, is better than Bernie's job guarantee.
Why is giving people $1,000 a month better than Sanders' plan to guaranteeing them a job?
I am for the spirit of a federal jobs guarantee, but you have to look at how it would actually materialize in practice. What are the jobs? Who manages you? What if you don't like your job? What if you're not good at your job? The fact is, most Americans do not want to work for the federal government. And saying that that is the vision of the economy of the 21st century, to me, is not a vision that most Americans would embrace. Also, Senator Sanders' description of a federal jobs guarantee does not take into account the work of people like my wife, who's at home with our two boys, one of whom is autistic. We have a freedom dividend of $1,000 a month. It actually recognizes the work that is happening in our families and our communities. It helps all Americans transition. Because the fact is, and you know this in Ohio, if you rely upon the federal government to target its resources, you wind up with failed retraining programs and jobs that no one wants. When we put the money into our hands, we can build a trickle-up economy. From our people, our families, and our communities up, it will enable us to do the kind of work that we want to do. This is the sort of positive vision in response to the fourth industrial revolution that we have to embrace as a party.
All right. So what do you think about his take on, I guess, UBI versus Bernie's federal job guarantee?
I think those two can go together because I think just common sense is on Yang's side here when talking about retraining people. And he mentions a lot of people who've been in a job field for a long time. And I think, I'm not sure if he mentioned it in that clip, but he likes to talk about truck drivers.
He does.
It's like one of the largest professions.
Right.
And he's like, you think you're going to, re-educate a 40 or 50 or 60-year-old truck driver? No. So I'm with him on that. So maybe there's some sort of like meeting place halfway where maybe the UBI maybe could be, I don't know, maybe certain people could qualify for the UBI, maybe based on age, based on their mental dexterity, based on how willing and how able they are to learn. And maybe, on Bernie's side, a federal jobs guarantee coupled with tuition assistance may help young people get ready for those, futuristic high-tech jobs. That's creating automation. So I'm kind of like in the middle.
I'm kind of like you. I'm pretty supportive of the idea of universal basic income. I'm not sure that I'm totally with Andrew Yang's universal basic income proposal. But I guess because we're talking about jobs here. Okay, we're talking about jobs. I understand that if you provide a universal basic income to people, that it will leave them in a better situation overall. And then we've talked about what kind of results that would, the kind of results that would be a reality going forward. You might be able to be more choosy about the job that you actually do take. But the cultivation of jobs, that's where I don't understand where the UBI, in this whole argument or this conversation about jobs and automation and the creation of jobs, I don't understand how UBI is going to fix that problem.
It's kind of the same, I would say, the same dilemma when Andrew Yang puts forth his UBI plan as a remedy for climate change.
Yeah.
He did clean it up a little bit, but the answer was still whack. Because one debate, he just left it out there.
Yeah, he did. He did.
And
did not explain it.
The next debate, he explained it, but it still didn't make any sense. And it's not going to do anything about the billions of dollars that are still in the hands of a few people as well.
Right.
It's not going to rebalance the wealth gap.
One thing that Yang said too, though, was that most people don't want a federal job. How the hell do you know that? How do you know that most people don't want federal jobs? A lot of people work for the federal government.
He went to Oklahoma, or he went to North Kentucky, whatever state, or whatever city, Potluck, Alabama.
Right.
And he talked to some dude named Jethro in the truck. And Jethro said, "I don't want no federal job, Andrew."
So you tell me if the federal government is actually offering jobs, good paying jobs, people are going to be turning them down because they come from the federal government?
Yes, absolutely.
Stop it. All right, so we're still on the same issue here, but this is going to be an exchange between Yang and Senator Warren on automation.
Senator Warren, I've been talking to Americans around the country about automation, and they're smart. They see what's happening around them. Their Main Street stores are closing.
Hold on. Let's get to Warren first. I hit the wrong clip. Yeah, let's get to Warren first.
Senator Warren, you wrote that blaming job loss on automation is, quote, a good story, except it's not really true. So should workers here in Ohio not be worried about losing their jobs to automation?
So the data show that we've had a lot of problems with losing jobs, but the principal reason has been bad trade policy. The principal reason has been a bunch of corporations, giant multinational corporations, who've been calling the shots on trade, giant multinational corporations that have no loyalty to America. They have no loyalty to American workers. They have no loyalty to American consumers. They have no loyalty to American communities. They are loyal only to their own bottom line. I have a plan to fix that, and it's accountable capitalism. It says you want to have one of the giant corporations in America, then by golly, 40% of your board of directors should be elected by your employees. That'll make a difference when a corporation decides, gee, we could save a nickel by moving a job to Mexico, when there are people on the board in the boardroom saying, no, do you know what that does to our company? Do you know what that does to our community, to what it does to our workers? We also need to make it easier to join a union and give unions more power when they negotiate. We need to restructure strength in this economy, and that's where it starts.
This is another one of those situations where I understand both of their points.
Well, we haven't gotten to Yang's.
Because you played that earlier.
Yeah. But you want to go right to it?
Yeah, let's go right to Yang so we can talk about it.
So Yang had a response to directly Warren's comments.
Senator Warren, I've been talking to Americans around the country about automation, and they're smart. They see what's happening around them. Their Main Street stores are closing. They see a self-serve kiosk in every McDonald's, every grocery store, every CVS. Driving a truck is the most common job in 29 states, including this one. 3.5 million truck drivers in this country, and my friends in California are piloting self-driving trucks. What is that going to mean for the 3.5 million truckers or the 7 million Americans who work in truck stops, motels, and diners that rely upon the truckers getting out and having a meal? Saying this is a rules problem is ignoring the reality that Americans see around us every single day.
Senator Warren, respond, please.
Exactly what
So I understand that what we're all looking for is how we strengthen America's middle class. And actually, I think the thing closest to the universal basic income is Social Security. It's one of the reasons that I put forward a plan to extend the solvency of Social Security by decades and add $200 to the payment of every person who receives Social Security right now and every person who receives disability insurance right now. That $200 a month will lift nearly 5 million families out of poverty, and it will sure loosen up the budget for a whole lot more. It also has a provision for your wife, for those who stay home to do caregiving for children or for seniors, and creates an opportunity for them to get credit on their Social Security. So after a lifetime of hard work, people are entitled to retire with dignity.
Thank you, Senator Warren.
I see this as an important question about I want to understand the data on this.
Senator, thank you very much.
I want to make sure we're responding to make this work.
Your time is up. I want to give.
Damn, they seem to be very cordial to one of
Well, until the end.
Till the end. Yeah.
Well, I have the data.
Yeah. I mean, she was kind of like throwing like some kind of like low shade a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm in the middle with both of them because she did bring up a pressing issue that has to do with jobs being shipped out.
Right.
And that's a problem.
Of course.
That's a major problem why there's job loss. Now, you can't ignore automation either. So I think they're both making a point, but I think Warren's went a little bit further to address a problem that's, we can probably, I'm not saying it's going to be an easy fix, but easier to fix than like what Yang is proposing.
Right. The one thing I did not like about Warren's retort was saying that Social Security is probably the closest thing to UBI. Social Security, you cannot access that until you get to a certain point in life. Yeah. So, okay, she said that, with her bill, I guess, or her proposal, there would be more that goes into Social Security. Well, that's great. How's that going to help me now? That has nothing.
I gotta wait till I'm 60.
Yeah,
so that's 55. Or something?
that wasn't good. That wasn't good.
Or like, depending on when I apply for it, that'll determine what percentage I get.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm disabled, I can get it right now. Yeah. But I still have to be disabled. It just, I don't know. But yeah, there was some value in both of their, commentary. All right, so we're going to go to income inequality. So Bernie Sanders is asked about the rising income inequality in the United States of America, and if his goal is to tax billionaires out of existence.
Income inequality is growing in the United States at an alarming rate. The top 1% now own more of this nation's wealth than the bottom 90% combined. Senator Sanders, when you introduced your wealth tax, which would tax the assets of the wealthiest Americans, you said, quoting you, Senator, billionaires should not exist. Is the goal of your plan to tax billionaires out of existence?
When you have 500,000 Americans sleeping out on the street today, when you have 87 million people uninsured or underinsured, when you got hundreds of thousands of kids who cannot afford to go to college and millions struggling with the oppressive burden of student debt, and then you also have 3 people owning more wealth than the bottom half of American society, that is a moral and economic outrage. And the truth is, we cannot afford to continue this level of income and wealth inequality, and we cannot afford a billionaire class whose greed and corruption has been at war with the working families of this country for 45 years. So if you're asking me, do I think we should demand that the wealthy start paying, the wealthiest, top 1/10 of 1%, start paying their fair share of taxes so we can create a nation and a government that works for all of us. Yes, that's exactly what I believe.
Thank you, Senator.
Well, classic Bernie.
That is classic Bernie.
Classic Bernie.
That's something that we have heard before. I've said it before too. This conversation about wealth in this country, millionaires, billionaires, this and that, capitalism, mixed economy, this and that, right? There's a lot of people that feel that the sheer notion that we do have billionaires is an insult because so many people are suffering in this economy. So many people are suffering or in poverty, or look, they're in poverty. They can't afford just the basic necessities, this and that. Can't afford to, take care of themselves or their families. It's like I said, it's an insult. So I've said before that, we have a system where if you have a good idea or, you are innovative, you work hard, things like that, or you do have a silver spoon in your mouth, you have an opportunity to make as much money as you can in this country. To a certain degree, I don't have a problem with people making as much money as they want to a certain degree. But when we have people down at the bottom that cannot live with the slightest bit of dignity, then we have a situation that is out of whack. And what Bernie Sanders says is that is a moral and economic outrage. And I agree with them. This system, the way we have it, is very unbalanced. Again, I have no problem with people earning as much money as they can. But if their ability to do that means that the people at the bottom have an inability to live with dignity, then no, something must change.
One thing I kind of wish he would have dived deeper into, I know it's hard in these debates, especially when there's like a lot of people, a lot of candidates, but talk about how hard corporations work to keep it the way it is. Because this is not natural. Right. I think that's why Bernie takes that position that there shouldn't be billionaires. There shouldn't be billionaires because this situation is not natural without exploitation first. And I think that's the problem.
Lobbying and all that.
We don't talk. I'm telling you, we don't. This is going to probably be a 2.5, 3 hour show about a debate. We watch it and we don't really talk to one another. That was actually going to be my next point.
Really?
Yeah. Because these companies spend millions of dollars to lobby against workers' rights.
Right.
They do that for a reason because they don't want a system, that comprises of people having dignity and equity in that system. So there's a lot of legwork that they do to keep it this way. That's not natural. They're doing that for a reason because of greed. They also hold states hostage in regard to their presence there. It's like, hey, we'll come there and give you jobs, but you got to give us some tax breaks.
Oh yeah, definitely. So like you said, it's a very unnatural thing that we have going on right now. If we did just have the situation where all that lobbying, all that influence was not a reality, and we just had people that were just making money based on their idea, based on their efforts and things like that, then I don't think we'd be in the same situation where so many people are in so poor situations, situations where, again, they can't afford to take care of themselves or their families. We would have a situation where, look, not everybody is going to be able to be an innovator. Not everybody in this system, not everybody is going to be able to be an entrepreneur. It's just not going to work like that because we do live in a service-based industry. So we're going to have more employees than we do bosses. That's just a given. Yeah. And I'm good with that. I'm actually good with that, provided that the people that are employees can actually take care of the bare necessities, can visit the doctor, can send their kids to school, can put food on the table, can put clothes on their back, can visit a movie from time to time, can go out to eat maybe on occasion, things like that.
But they can't do those things because the CEOs need to have 10 yachts.
Exactly.
If they get rid of one of those yachts, they'll be toast.
Helicopter, private plane.
Helicopter,
like
private plane. They gotta have those. Those things are necessities.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? I know, Barbara can't afford Pampers for her daughter. You know what I'm saying? But that's the sacrifice Barbara has to take so CEOs can have that helicopter, that chopper, or that Rolex or whatever.
Exactly.
I mean, so one thing about that kind of income inequality and how it's like kind of this conversation is shut down, especially with advice given to poor people. What do they say? Well, maybe you just buy one less Twinkie. And you know what I'm saying? You just cut down on the honey buns. You know what I'm saying? You'd be able to save one less latte.
You got that expensive phone in your hand?
Yup.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, maybe these CEOs can give up one of their fucking yachts.
Exactly.
Or one of their choppers.
So we do have a billionaire that was on the stage last night, though, and that is Tom Steyer.
Yeah,
so obviously, with Bernie Sanders talking about billionaires and talking about his wealth tax proposal, Tom Steyer was directed this question, and what does he feel about Bernie's answer, and what does he feel about Bernie's wealth tax?
Mr. Steyer, you are the lone billionaire on this stage. What's your plan for closing the income gap?
Well, first of all, let me say this. Senator Sanders is right. There have been 40 years where corporations have bought this government, and those 40 years have meant a 40-year attack on the rights of working people and specifically on organized labor. And the results are as shameful as Senator Sanders says, both in terms of assets and in terms of income. It's absolutely wrong. It's absolutely undemocratic and unfair. I was one of the first people on this stage to propose a wealth tax. I would undo every Republican tax cut for rich people and major corporations. But there's something else going on here that is absolutely shameful, and that's the way the money gets split up in terms of earnings. As a result of taking away the rights of working people and organized labor, people haven't had a raise. 90% of Americans have not had a raise for 40 years. If you took the minimum wage from 1980 and just adjusted it for inflation, you get $11. It's $7.25. If you included the productivity gains of American workers, it'd be over $20. There's something wrong here, and that is that the corporations have bought our government. Our government has failed. That's why I'm running for president, because we're not going to get any of the policies that everybody on this stage wants. Health care, education, Green New Deal, or a living wage, unless we break the power of these corporations.
Thank you, Mr. Steyer.
Knock that shit out the park.
Yeah.
Knock that shit out the park, man. And of course, again, this is coming from a billionaire, Tom Steyer. Now, we have talked about his past before. He was in, he was into some things, investments,
hedge fund.
He put that behind him. He distanced himself from that past. He said, actually, he was, I don't know if he used specifically the word ashamed, but he said it was the wrong decision. He regrets, I guess, that lifestyle. And ever since then, it's really been a 180. He's been trying to do the right thing. At least it looks like he's been trying to do the right thing. He's been walking the walk for many years now.
But there's still a toss-up whether he walked the walk if he got elected. I do think it's a bit of a contradiction for him, though, to talk about how corporations have bought America when he bought his way on that stage. This is I can agree with the points he made, and he's one of the few people that tends to co-sign Bernie Sanders and what Bernie Sanders says. Probably one of the few people on that stage who consistently does it. So I can't fault him too much, but it's just a bad look to talk about how corporations have bought their way in to our government, but you bought your way.
But see, the difference is that he's not lobbying the government.
True.
He's lobbying people.
True.
You know what I'm saying? He's trying to get his message out there to people.
And maybe that's what, his purpose is, because, people talk about, and we talk about it too, but I have to put it in perspective. I can say this person has no chance. They're polling at 2%. They're polling at 3%. They're polling at 5%. I understand that people want these debates to be dwindled down, right? Because they can be, you can have a little bit more focus with less candidates. But I do think some of these candidates have a purpose. A lot of them don't.
Right.
A lot of them don't. I do think Steyer has a purpose here, regardless of his electability. I'm not using electability as the mainstream media uses it. I'm just saying like his viability. So there are a few candidates that are polling low that need to be there to kind of steer the conversation in a certain direction or provide some assistance for Bernie Sanders. I think he provides that. Now, some of the other candidates, I'm not sure they provide that same kind of value. You know what I'm saying? Like Buttigieg.
Well, look, Tom Steyer, again, you can argue you can argue about his viability, you can argue about his effect, his value, this and that. I think he's doing a better job being a progressive than Elizabeth Warren is doing. I can say that. He has qualified for the 5th debate as well.
Shots fired.
Yeah.
like nonchalant.
Yeah. But yeah, he has qualified for the 5th debate. What I also liked about his commentary right there was he included the truth about the minimum wage. And if you actually adjusted for inflation, you actually adjusted for productivity, the minimum wage would be much, much higher than a $7.25. We're talking about over $20 an hour. We have talked about this at least a handful of times in the past 3 years. So I'm very glad that he actually brought that up, because you don't actually see that, especially on a debate stage, very often. All right. So we're going to get to Elizabeth Warren now. Subject is the same, about the wealth tax, I believe.
I think this is about our values as a country. Show me your budget, show me your tax plans, and we'll know what your values are. And right now in America, the top 0.1% have so much wealth. Understand this, that if we put a 2-cent tax on their 50 millionth and first dollar, and on every dollar after that, we would have enough money to provide universal child care for every baby in this country aged 0 to 5, universal pre-K for every child, raise the wages of every child care worker and preschool teacher in America, provide for universal tuition-free college, put $50 billion into historically black colleges and universities.
Thank you, Senator Warren.
No, let me finish, please. And cancel student loan debt for 95% of the people who have it. My question is not why do Bernie and I support a wealth tax? It's does everyone else on this stage think it is more important to protect billionaires than it is to invest in an entire generation of Americans?
Thank you, Senator Warren.
No one is supporting billionaires.
Now, those are shots fired.
She had to do that.
You heard Biden saying at the end, no one here supports billionaires. Biden had the nerve to say that. He's the one that doesn't want to demonize billionaires.
Don't want to demonize.
I'm gonna need you guys.
And what did he say about their circumstances if he gets elected? What did he say?
Won't change.
They won't change.
Won't change. Yeah. This is during a fundraiser, a little private
fundraiser.
gathering.
So that actually goes against what he said.
I know. But he can't.
He got mad.
Stage.
You see how you got to get that. He was like, "Whoa!" He's getting
so
mad.
He felt personally
called out.
Yeah.
He felt, but she didn't call out. She didn't call him out specifically. No. She just said everyone on stage. Yeah. But he was the only one that felt some kind of way about it.
Yes. Well, there was another person that felt some kind of way too. That was Amy
Klobuchar. Yes.
So
yes.
She had a little retort to that.
I think simply because you have different ideas doesn't mean you're fighting for regular people. I wouldn't even be up on this stage if it wasn't for unions and the dignity of work. If my grandpa didn't have unions protecting him in those mines, he wouldn't have survived. If my mom didn't have unions as a teacher, she wouldn't have been able to make the wages she made when my parents got divorced. So just because we have different ideas and get to the same place in terms of beating Donald Trump and taking this on, we are in Ohio. We can win Ohio in the presidency, but only if we unite around ideals and don't go fighting against each other and instead take the fight to him.
Thank you, Senator.
So, okay, we have different ideas.
And just because you have a different idea doesn't mean it's better.
Yeah, it doesn't mean we're not going to eventually get to the same place as well. We must unite, and we can't fight each other. We can't fight each other.
You know what that means? you can't fight me.
Yeah.
Because it's
coming from Klobuchar.
You're fighting people right now. You're saying that, hey, like, your plan is not just better because it's different. You are actually, like, throwing smoke on their plan.
Right.
Then you turn right around and say, we need to stop fighting.
Yeah, don't fight against me.
What she really means is, don't fight against me.
Yeah.
And that seems right up her alley, considering, I guess she has a spotty history as a boss.
Oh, yeah, she does.
You know what I'm saying? It's my way or the highway. She started throwing binders and shit.
She has an attitude problem.
Yes.
But yeah, it is very hypocritical for this particular candidate, this particular Senator Klobuchar, to say that we must unite and we don't need to fight with each other when she talks so disparagingly about Medicare for all every single chance that she gets. Every single chance. But when the subject is, hey, Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, they want this wealth tax. They don't want to, I guess, defend billionaires. And everybody else seems to be wanting to do that, or less, or I guess you could, I could say it that way. Actually, I would choose to say it that way. But when it's that issue, then she feels attacked, and no, we can't fight each other. But on issues that I disagree with you about, like your policies, oh yeah, nah, it's all fair game.
No, she throws smoke on everybody.
All right. All right. So what's next? Okay. Then we get to Syria. All right. So, all right. So, of course,
I can't hide mine. I can't hide it, bro.
Because you know it's coming.
Yeah.
Syria has been in the news. Northern Syria, the U.S. troops being pulled out, and the Kurds being assaulted by the Turkish forces. Civilians being slaughtered. We know what's going on. We knew what was going to happen as soon as Trump made that announcement. So the Democratic candidates are asked about this issue and how they feel about it. So we're going to begin with Representative Tulsi Gabbard.
Last week, you said that American troops should get out of Syria now. You don't agree with how the president handled the withdrawal. What would you have done differently? How would you have pulled out troops without the bloodshed we're seeing now?
Oh, first of all, we've got to understand the reality of the situation there, which is that the slaughter of the Kurds being done by Turkey is yet another negative consequence of the regime change war that we've been waging in Syria. Donald Trump has the blood of the Kurds on his hand, but so do many of the politicians in our country from both parties who have supported this ongoing regime change war in Syria that started in 2011. Along with many in the mainstream media who have been championing and cheerleading this regime change war. Not only that, but New York Times and CNN have also smeared veterans like myself for calling for an end to this regime change war. Just 2 days ago, the New York Times put out an article saying that I'm a Russian asset and an Assad apologist and all these different smears. This morning, a CNN commentator said on national television that I'm an asset of Russia. Completely despicable. As president, I will end these regime change wars by doing two things. Ending the draconian sanctions that are really a modern day siege, the likes of which we are seeing Saudi Arabia wage against Yemen, that have caused tens and thousands of Syrian civilians to die and to starve. And I would make sure that we stop supporting terrorists like al-Qaeda in Syria, who've been the ground force in this ongoing regime change war. I'd like to ask Senator Warren if she would join me in calling for an end to this regime change war in Syria, finally.
So look, I think that we ought to get out of the Middle East. I don't think we should have troops in the Middle East, but we have to do it the right way, the smart way.
I don't think she fully answered the question. That's just my opinion. She was asked, what would you do to end the war in Syria specifically? But Tulsi took it upon herself to not just talk about Syria. She talked about the military-industrial complex in general, regime change wars. But in my opinion, she didn't answer the question. I know it's one of those situations, we're in a debate where there's a lot of people, not a lot of time to answer the question, but she should already have, this is her thing, remember, this is her thing. So she should already have an outline of how we pull out. That's it. She should have an outline. I'm not looking for details, but she should have an outline. Really, the only thing she mentioned was lifting sanctions. And she mentioned something else too, but I thought that was inconsequential.
She said, stop supporting and stop arming the terrorists.
Yeah, but there's something else that has to happen before that. Like I'm actually cool with, you know, a politician, whether it be Tulsi Gabbard or any anti-war politician or any anti-war pundit or whoever. I'm okay with them saying, I don't know what to do. I'm okay with that. I think what some anti-war people don't want to acknowledge is that maybe pulling out immediately is not the start. That's not the first thing you do. And I think that's the problem right there, is the only way you can maintain this anti-war like mantle is you got to get out first. That's the first thing you do. And I was like, yeah, I'm cool with getting out, but that's not the first thing you do. If the military-industrial complex still exists, if capitalism still exists, if lobbying still exists, then we're going to continue to have these problems. Just pulling out is not going to solve the issue. I just wish more anti-war people would be like that, or just accept the consequences of this abrupt pullout. Didn't she contradict herself, though?
She did.
In what way? We saw the same thing.
She talks out of both sides of her mouth, because it began with her being, not read her own words, but you know, I guess the commentator or the moderator was saying that you have said that you do support pulling out of Syria, and you wanted that to happen now, but you have been critical about President Trump's actions and how you wouldn't do it the same way. So then when she began her answer, she did say that President Trump has the blood of the Kurds on his hands. So she's on both sides of the fence, or she's just on the fence. I don't know where she is.
Is she going to dismantle the State Department? That would have to happen first. She's going to have to change the direction of the State Department if she wants to, I guess, get done what she wants to get done, as far as putting pressure on certain countries or not supporting certain dictators, which is ironic.
But like you said,
for her,
yeah, it is. But
no,
like
I'm not talking about Assad, so it's not Assad attack.
But like you said, you know, I don't think anybody has a problem with an anti-war stance. I don't think anybody has a problem with, or anti-war activists. Of course, nobody has a problem with her and others' language about, hey, we need to stop these regime change wars. We need to get our troops out of the Middle East and stop adding to the conflicts, making the conflict worse, or just creating the conflict. We need to stop doing that. Cool. But the particular case that we're talking about in northern Syria with the Kurds, the U.S. forces that were there were not under attack from the Turkish people. It wasn't like this was
kind of demilitarized.
Yes. So it wasn't like there was like some ongoing fight between the U.S. troops and the Kurds on one side and Turkey on the other side. There was no fighting whatsoever. Turkey was not being threatened. The Kurds and the U.S. forces were not being threatened. So to straddle the fence and say that, no, this isn't the way I would have done it if I was Donald Trump, and he has the blood of the Kurds on his hands, but we should get out immediately.
And it's everybody's fault. And I'm like, I agree that it's everybody's fault. That's why, you know, I mentioned that she kind of broadly mentioned the military industrial complex and their involvement in wars in general, and how both parties kind of elect to stay in these regime change wars rather than pull out. That is the correct answer. But if you're talking about this specific case, this specific
that's a broad take that is accurate,
which is accurate. Yeah. But in this specific case, what would she do? And she didn't answer that question. And I thought she was a bit stumbly as well throughout the most part of that answer.
All right, so Senator Kamala Harris is going to provide an answer on Syria.
Given that the U.S. abandoned our Kurdish allies, what would you do as president to convince the rest of the world that we can still be trusted?
That's a great question, Anderson, because the Commander-in-Chief of the United States of America has as one of her greatest priorities and responsibilities to concern herself with the security of our nation and homeland. I serve on the Senate Intelligence Committee. I have, over a period of time, received classified information about the threats to our security and hotspots around the world. What has happened in Syria is yet again Donald Trump selling folks out. And in this case, he sold out the Kurds, who, yes, fought with us, and thousands died in our fight against ISIS. And let's be clear, what Donald Trump has done because of that phone call with Erdogan is basically giving 10,000 ISIS fighters a get-out-of-jail-free card. And you know who the winner is in this? There are 4. Russia, Iran, Assad, and ISIS. This is a crisis of Donald Trump's making, and it is on a long list of crises of Donald Trump's making, and that's why do gotta go, and when I am commander-in-chief, we will stop this madness.
What was that last part?
Yo, when I first heard that, I'm like, oh, what she said? She said, do gotta go. I'm like, okay. Yo, Kamala, okay. And she's fundraising off of that now too. So I think that was planned. It didn't come off as rehearsed though. So I will give her credit. It did not come off as rehearsed. It came off as kind of natural.
You're being too charitable. I'm being a grouch right now.
It came off natural. I think it came off very naturally. Okay. It wasn't like she stumbled or anything like that. It just felt like that was just normal, her normal type of conversation.
After Anderson Cooper asked for the question, I thought her first answer was going to be, I'm going to throw them all in jail. Throw everybody in jail. I one thing I just don't like the continued focus on Trump. Yeah, Trump fucked up, and there's probably a lot of hidden reasons, a lot of personal reasons that would benefit him that led him to secretly coordinate with Erdogan. Yes, there's a lot going on under the hood there, but I just don't like the focus being on Trump, as if this situation wasn't set up for him to exploit. We can have both of those positions at the same time. That's why I give Tulsi credit for bringing up kind of our United States having a habit of getting involved in these quagmires. That's why I like that part. I just didn't like where she went with it as far as specifically Syria, but she's making a good point. All Trump is doing is exploiting a situation that was set up by our foreign policy. You can have both positions. You can talk about our foreign policy in Syria or in any other country, but you can also talk about Trump exploiting the situation and talk about those things together.
To go back to Tulsi just for 1 second though, and about her response. It's a little bit strange though for a particular reason. Tulsi Gabbard, again, noting that she said she's on the fence here now, saying that we should pull out immediately, and also that the blood of the Kurds is on Trump's hands, right? All right, so she has those two positions simultaneously. Okay. This is a congresswoman who had once stated that she was a dove when it comes to regime change wars.
Maybe that's why
endless wars.
Maybe that's why she wears white.
Yeah. But then she was a hawk when it comes to fighting terrorism. The Kurds were fighting terrorism with the United States forces. So why would you even include that we should get those troops out immediately? We should pull them out immediately when you have said yourself that your position is that we need to be hawks on terrorism.
That's always been a contradiction for me and Will. Because most people, like most leftists and most progressives who are anti-war, are also against the war on terror. Because we think that the war on terror kind of has dubious beginnings in the first place. Yeah. The war on terror leads to regime change wars. So if you're against the regime change wars, you kind of have to be against the war on terror too. Yeah. So that's where I think there's a contradiction with Tulsi.
All right. So Senator Cory Booker gets involved in the discussion on Syria.
So first of all, understand that this president is turning the moral leadership of this country into a dumpster fire. We literally have great generals like Mattis, who said on the world stage, the United States of America, there can be no better friend than the United States of America and no greater enemy than the United States of America. This president has turned that upside down and now is doing things to undermine our critical alliances and partner with Russia. And so clearly to your question, number one, we cannot allow the Russians to continue to grow in influence by abandoning the world stage. We cannot allow Russia to not only interfere in the democracies of the Ukraine and Latvia and Lithuania, but even not calling them out for their efforts to interfere in this democracy are unacceptable. Russia and Putin understand strength, and this president, time and time again, is showing moral weakness. He makes promises to the American people that he's going to protect this nation. Well, instead of doing something to defeat ISIS, he's now given them a foothold again. This is an American president that even right now is lying to the American public and saying he's bringing our troops home. At the same time, he's increasing troop presence with the Saudis, and while they're involved in an unjust war that is killing tens of thousands of children in Yemen. This president is making us less safe. He is partnering more with Putin than he is with Merkel and Macron. And as President of the United States, I will stop this and restore American integrity abroad.
Thank you.
Whoa. There's a lot that I agree with there.
Yeah, he was on his game right there.
Yeah, but I mean.
Yeah, well, the one thing that I would say was that, yeah, his transition to talking about the increased U.S. troops that are, in Saudi Arabia, trying to defend against Iran, I guess.
1,800.
Yes.
1,800 troops.
So, again, this is a president in Trump that is a peaceful president, right? And wants to get us out of all these skirmishes,
he said that
and all these conflicts.
He said that at a press conference.
Yes.
I think it was earlier today.
Yeah, he did.
He says that's what I ran on, pulling out of wars.
Right.
I'm just like,
getting us out of the Middle East. But then you're putting more troops in the Middle East. So you're taking troops out of an area in northern Syria where they weren't being attacked by Turkey. You're taking them out and you're letting the Kurds get slaughtered by Turkey. But then you're going to put them in Saudi Arabia as to what? Start a conflict with Iran?
Where I would say there's way more activity. I'm just using a very benign term to describe what's going on over there. But yeah, there's way more activity there. Mm-hmm. So he's sending troops there, but we have to pat him on the back for pulling out of Syria. Get out of here. And what else did he do as far as what's that V word? That V word. That's a V word I'm looking for.
What you talking about? Vin? What are you talking about?
It's a V word.
The country?
It's associated with Trump. Not Venezuela.
Oh, okay.
Something that he did. Did something to a resolution. He vetoed a resolution.
Because that is
to end U.S. support.
To
yes, to end U.S. support in the Saudi-led coalition.
Because it was a resolution that was passed the House, it passed the Senate after the murder of the journalist Khashoggi.
Anti-war.
Yes.
Anti-war.
Yes.
And
but he's cozying up to Saudi Arabia.
Oh yeah, and drone strikes have gone up 400% too.
Yeah. That's the peaceful president
we have.
That's
the peaceful president. Yeah. Peaceful president who has ex-lobbyists and ex-CEOs on his national security team. Ex-CEOs and lobbyists from Lockheed Martin and Raytheon. Yeah, that's anti-war right there.
All right, so we're going to move the conversation to guns now. And on, Beto O'Rourke is the focus here. And he's asked a question about his earlier response in a previous debate in which he advocated for mandatory buyback of certain guns. So this is Beto.
Congressman O'Rourke, in the last debate, you said, quote, hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15, your AK-47. But when you were asked how you'd enforce a mandatory buyback, you said police wouldn't be going door to door. So how exactly are you going to force people to give up their weapons? You don't even know who has those weapons.
I expect my fellow Americans to follow the law, the same way that we enforce any provision, any law that we have right now. We don't go door to door to do anything in this country to enforce the law. I expect Republicans, Democrats, gun owners, non-gun owners alike
Congressman,
to
let me
respect
follow up.
and follow the law.
Just to follow up, your expectations aside, your website says you will find people who don't give up their weapons. That doesn't take those weapons off the street. So to be clear, exactly how are you going to take away weapons from people who do not want to give them up and you don't know where they are?
If someone does not turn in an AR-15 or an AK-47, one of these weapons of war, or brings it out in public and brandishes it in an attempt to intimidate, as we saw when we were at Kent State recently, then that weapon will be taken from them.
If they persist, there will be other consequences from law enforcement. But the expectation is that Americans will follow the law. I believe in this country. I believe in my fellow Americans. I believe that they will do the right thing.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor Buttigieg, just yesterday you referred to mandatory buybacks as confiscation and said that Congressman O'Rourke has been picking a fight to try to stay relevant. Your response on guns?
Well, Congressman, you just made it clear that you don't know how this is actually going to take weapons off the streets. If you can develop the plan further, I think we can have a debate about it, but we can't wait. People are dying in the streets right now. We can't wait for universal background checks that we finally have a shot to actually get through. We can't wait to ban the sale of new weapons and high-capacity magazines so we don't wind up with millions more of these things on the street. We can't wait for red flag laws that are going to disarm domestic abusers and prevent suicides, which are not being talked about nearly enough as a huge part of the gun violence epidemic in this country. We cannot wait for purity tests. We have to just get something done.
A little bit of grandstanding, but his primary point I agree with. I just think it's a little bit more grandstanding than I was, I don't know, expecting, and a little bit too much grandstanding in my opinion. But the overall point he was making towards Beto O'Rourke is right. Like, you didn't explain how it's going to happen. You can't just say, I'm going to do this and I'm going to give people a choice. That just seems a bit lazy to me. Like, if you're going to come out with this bold like proposal, like gun confiscation, the other one was what I guess taking away the tax exempt status of churches. That was the other major one. Those are bold, and I kind of agree with Buttigieg here, even though, again, I'll repeat, he was playing the troll under the bridge the entire debate. But I do kind of agree with Buttigieg because this is how I perceived it. It does seem like he's trying to find some issue to separate himself from the other candidates because he's essentially a corporate candidate. He's not going to really back a lot of deep progressive issues. So he has to separate himself, and it does seem like he took those two issues on to kind of like separate himself. How much substance those issues have, it looks like there's not much behind it because as Buttigieg illustrated, he didn't explain the process, like how it was going to happen.
So it sounds as though O'Rourke is trying to be aggressive on this issue. You're saying. The whole notion of the confiscation and how that's going to play out, that is kind of unexplained, and he didn't do a good job explaining that during this debate. Now, whether or not you support mandatory confiscate or mandatory buyback program or a voluntary buyback program, I think that's the relevant issue here. The whole idea of like the confiscation, how's that gonna happen? I would want to know some more information about that too. Like, if you're not going door to door, if you're not trying to find people with these guns, like how are you gonna confiscate these weapons? I would like to know that answer as well. But again, if the conversation is about the mandatory buyback program versus the voluntary buyback program, I'm with the mandatory side because that, I think, I guess his rationale and his explanation serves that conversation well, because he is going to have to just, I guess, trust people that they're going to follow the law. If they don't follow the law, then there will be a penalty for it if they ever are found out having a gun that is no longer legal in the United States of America. That's the same way that has happened in other countries as well when they've had a mandatory buyback program. You give it into the government, and we'll purchase that gun from you. But we're not going to go door to door searching and hunting for these weapons. So again, I think it's relevant if you're talking about the mandatory buyback program, not relevant if you're talking about confiscation. So this conversation or this kind of exchange between them two lingered on for a little bit.
Yeah, it did. It lingered.
So you're going to see Buttigieg getting a little bit testy in this next clip.
I don't need lessons from you on courage, political or personal. Everyone on this stage is determined to get something done. Everyone on this stage recognizes, or at least I thought we did, that the problem is not other Democrats who don't agree with your particular idea of how to handle this. The problem is the National Rifle Association and their enablers in Congress, and we should be united in taking the fight to them.
That's a mischaracterization. Anderson, I got to answer this. Never took you or anyone else on who disagrees with me on this issue. But when you Mayor Buttigieg, described this policy as a shiny object. I don't care what that meant to me or my candidacy, but to those who have survived gun violence, those who've lost a loved one to an AR-15 and AK-47, March for Our Lives, formed in the courage of students willing to stand up to the NRA and conventional politics and poll-tested politicians. That was a slap in the face to every single one of those groups and every single survivor of a mass casualty assault with an AR-15 and an AK-47. We must buy them back.
All right. Look, I think Buttigieg was unnecessarily hostile by saying that I don't need any advice from you on courage, you know, whether it's this or that. Yeah. I think that was unnecessary because as O'Rourke explained too, he wasn't challenging him and his courage specifically. It's something that pretty much every single candidate will say, we need to have the courage to do this. We need to have the courage to implement this type of program, this type of policy for the American people. We need to have the courage to stand up to the lobbyists. We need to have the courage to stand up to big business, big oil, big gas. It's just par for the course. That's just the way politicians always speak when they're trying to make their point. So that Buttigieg took this opportunity to kind of just attack him in this kind of way I think it was whack. I don't think it looked good at all.
He's like, I'm the smart guy here, okay?
Yeah,
and Buttigieg
like back up.
Buttigieg is one of the smartest people on that stage, I will admit. But it did seem like he took offense for some reason. Like, hey, I'm the smart guy here. Yeah. And I don't need you, coming back at me and making me look like I'm weak or something, even though it's just Beto O'Rourke kind of being an advocate for those groups he was talking about, those people he was talking about.
I do have a question, though, about what Buttigieg was talking about. And I don't believe it was the last clip. It wasn't this one. But Buttigieg was saying that, we don't have time for this. We don't have time for universal background checks and waiting for that to get passed. We don't have time for red flag laws. And we don't have time for, banning assault weapons. And we don't have time for this. We have to get something done. I'm like, well, damn, what do you want to get done then? What are you talking? We don't have time to do this? He is in support of banning assault weapons. So it's like, I understand that you were trying to attack him in his idea of confiscation. I understand that. But by saying that we don't have time for this and we don't have time for that, we don't have time for a lot of things that we actually want to see done in this country in terms of guns and gun control and gun regulation. Well, what do we have time for? He just threw out some things that we really, there's a lot of consensus on. What do you mean? Like, what's your proposal then? What do we have time for then? We need to get something done. What? He didn't explain that whatsoever. We don't have time for universal background checks. Don't have time to ban certain types of guns. Don't have time for red flag laws. What do we have time for then? I don't know.
It just seems like he's just playing, just professional contrarian again.
All right, so Julian Castro gets involved in this debate about guns and about mandatory buyback program versus a voluntary buyback program.
Let me answer this question about voluntary versus mandatory. There are two problems I have with mandatory buybacks. Number one, folks can't define it. And if you're not going to door to door, then it's not really mandatory. But also, in the places that I grew up in, we weren't exactly looking for another reason for cops to come banging on the door. And y'all saw a couple of days ago what happened to Tatiana Jefferson in Fort Worth. A cop showed up at 2 a.m. at her house when she was playing video games with her nephew. He didn't even announce himself, and within 4 seconds, he shot her and killed her through her home window. She was in her own home. And so I am not going to give these police officers another reason to go door to door in certain communities, because police violence is also gun violence, and we need to address that.
Secretary Castro, thank you.
Wow. Castro did not get a lot of talk time during this debate, but when he did speak, I think it had a lot of value, especially then. Like, I don't think that was something that was planned, because he brought up Tatiana Jefferson.
Yeah.
He invoked her name in a story that's trending. Maybe he knew, the gun question was coming, but I don't know. I just like how he kind of fit that in there, because this discussion allowed him to bring that situation up. And when you say, police violence is gun violence, that's a big statement.
I have a different take. I didn't like it. I didn't like it whatsoever.
Wow.
Initially, I will say that I had a favorable response because he did bring up a Tatiana Jefferson.
Right.
And so to bring her up in that situation, we're
Expand the
talking about
conversation.
guns. You know, she wasn't brought up before. It's definitely a subject that a lot of people are talking about across this country.
Right.
Her life being just so carelessly and unnecessarily ended. Definitely just hearing her name is like, yeah, okay, damn, yeah, I like somebody bringing her up. But I think it was disingenuous here because, again, this is the argument about mandatory buyback program versus a voluntary buyback program. With a mandatory buyback program, police officers are not showing up at your door. So I think he used this situation. I think he used her name just for some political goodwill, just to advance his campaign. Because, again, if you have a voluntary buyback program, really, what is the difference? What is the difference between voluntary and mandatory? Criminal. If it's criminal or not for you to still possess that weapon. If it's criminal or not, that does not mean that police officers are going to show up and see if you still have the weapon. It just means that if you are caught with it, then there will be a charge for you possessing that gun while it's illegal.
That's what O'Rourke was saying.
Yes. But again, he talks about confiscation and can't explain that.
Can't explain
if he didn't have that policy, if he didn't have that language, then I wouldn't have no problem. I don't think anybody has a problem with what he has to say. But he can't explain the confiscation angle. But yeah, like I didn't like her. I didn't like Castro name dropping her in this vein because it didn't make sense. Because a mandatory buyback program does not lead to police officers showing up at your door. So it wouldn't lead to another situation like Jefferson or another Jefferson being killed.
Maybe it would have been a better fit for him to bring that up if the conversation was centered on like criminal justice reform.
Yeah. Yes. This was disingenuous. All right. Where are we going to go now? All right. Opioids. We're going to go to the opioid conversation. Question goes to Tom Steyer about opioids and, I guess, what should we do with the opioid epidemic?
Well, I think this is one of the most heartbreaking experiences that America's had. 72,000 people died of opioid overdoses last year. And that's not only a tragedy for them, it's a tragedy for their family and their communities. And so I think we have to treat this as a health crisis. We have to move the resources and the support there to try and help people. But I think that Senator Klobuchar makes a good point. The reason I'm running for president is that we have a broken government. And we have a broken government because corporations have bought it. And every single one of these conversations is about that broken government. It's about drug companies buying the government and getting what they want. It's about the gun manufacturers buying the government and get what we want. We need to break the corporate stranglehold on our government. I've put forward actual structural changes, including term limits, a national referendum, the end to the idea that corporations are people and have the rights of American citizens politically, and make it a lot easier to vote. These corporations have taken over our government, and 72,000 deaths last year are the tragic result.
Look, this is something that we've talked about before. All of these bold proposals, all of these bold ideas, all these things that we want to see implemented, how does it get done if we have the same corrupt government that we have always known there to be? Money in politics, corporations treated as people, corporations lobbying our Congress members. How do we ever actually get to actual change in a state where people are actually being represented? How do we get there if we don't address the corruption that is going on, and so openly as well? How do you get there? I think that's what Tom Steyer was trying to, or provide an answer for. It's not like this opioid epidemic just came out of nowhere and like it was a natural process. Oh, just people started getting addicted to drugs.
It was kind of a coordinated effort to overprescribe this medicine.
Yeah.
It was a coordinated effort.
And
they knew how addictive it was,
right.
But these companies didn't care. They kept pushing these ads.
No, not only did the companies not care, the government did not care.
Because the government was getting their little, pocket change too.
So I think he's right. All right, here we go with Andrew Yang, same subject, opioid epidemic.
Mr. Yang, you want to decriminalize the possession and use of small amounts of opioids, including heroin. How would that solve the crisis?
That's exactly right. And we have to recognize this is a disease of capitalism run amok. There was a point when there were more opiate prescriptions in the state of Ohio than human beings in the state of Ohio. And for some reason, the federal government thought that was appropriate. They ended up levying a $600 million fine against Purdue Pharma, which sounds like a lot of money, until you realize that company made $30 billion. They got a 2% fine, and they killed tens of thousands of Americans 8 an hour. So if the government turned a blind eye to this company spreading a plague among its people, then the least we can do is put the resources to work in our communities so our people have a fighting chance to get well. Even though this is not a money problem, we all know this is a human problem. And part of helping people get the treatment that they need is to let them know that they're not going to be referred to a prison cell. They will be referred to treatment and counseling. I talked to an EMT in New Hampshire, and he said he saves the same addicts over and over again. Because the fact is, after you save someone who's ODing, you just bring them back to their house and they OD again the following week. So we need to decriminalize opiates for personal use. We have to let the country know this is not a personal failing. This was a systemic government failing. And then we need to open up safe consumption and safe injection sites around the country because they save lives.
That was very concise.
That's strong.
That's very concise and strong.
Very strong.
I tell you what, that was smooth. That was smooth too. Mm-hmm. Like we highlighted how Yang is not given a lot of time, and sometimes it looks like some of his comments and remarks are forced because of this. But this time he looked very comfortable, and there's not anything I can disagree with.
No, I can't disagree with one word.
Because he basically was going over, what works. What works for people. We all know why drugs in general are criminalized. We all know that. Who does that benefit? It does not benefit people. It does not help people recover.
Right.
And so I guess he's looking at it from the perspective of like reconciliation, along with trying to block off what causes this issue, which he was talking about, out of control capitalism. And I think that actually undercuts Elizabeth Warren a bit, because what has she been promoting lately? The accountable capitalism.
Accountable capitalism.
The accountable capitalism has what he mentioned, Purdue Pharma, I guess throwing pocket change at some fine. It was pocket change to them. What did he say, 600 million?
Yeah, it was a 2% fine.
A 2% fine. Yeah. That's accountable capitalism, but all these people died, that's nothing to them.
Exactly. That's, like I said, I can't disagree with anything that Andrew Yang said. It does need, opioid use does need to be decriminalized on a personal level, no doubt. And people do need to understand or know that they're not going to be referred to for criminal prosecution. They're going to be aided. They're going to be allowed to seek rehabilitation, counseling, these things. It's not just opioids. I'm for
all of them,
all across the board.
And he is too.
Yes,
he is too.
All right. All right, so Bernie Sanders gets into the conversation of opioids, but it starts out a little bit interesting, a little funny, because I guess Bernie Sanders was not, it wasn't intended that he was going to get involved in that question. Actually, Erin Burnett, who was one of the moderators, she was trying to go to the subject of age and health. But Bernie Sanders kind of tried to shut that down, and he wanted to be heard on the opioid epidemic. So here's that clip.
Now to the issue of candidates and their health. Senator Sanders, I want to start with you. We're moving on, Senator.
I'm
sorry.
healthy. I'm feeling great, but I would like to respond to that question.
I want to start by saying...
And Senator Sanders is in favor of medical marijuana. I want to make sure that's clear as well.
Thank you.
Senator Sanders, this debate does mark your... This debate...
All right.
This debate, sir, does mark your return to the campaign trail. Okay, go ahead and finish your point, and then I'll ask my question, Senator.
I'm more than happy to answer your question, but I wanted to pick up on what Kamala and Corey and others have said. Let's take a deep breath. Take a look at this opioid epidemic. You have executives CEOs of major pharmaceutical companies making tens of millions of dollars a year. And in this particular case with the opioids, they knew that they were selling a product to communities all over this country which were addicting people and killing them. And last year, the top 10 drug companies made $69 billion in profit. This is what unfettered capitalism is doing to this country. And it's not just the drug companies. Right now, the CEOs in the fossil fuel industry know full well that their product is destroying this world, and they continue to make huge profits.
Senator,
that is why we need a political revolution that says enough is enough to this behavior.
So Bernie says he didn't gas up before the debate.
That's what he said.
That's what he said.
That's his story.
I don't believe him. My man gassed up.
Yo, he was smiling. He was having fun on the debate stage because that little moment right there.
And Cory Booker.
Cory Booker. There was another moment he had with Joe Biden in which he was like, "Hey, are you insinuating that I'm Putin?"
Yeah, and they hugged, which I didn't like. But man, I'm not gonna say what I said on Facebook, but I said something about it.
But yeah, he was in a good place. Like I said. A lot of the narrative that you always hear about Bernie Sanders is that he is this grump. He is so...
He's mean.
Yeah,
he doesn't smile.
He just frowns all the time. He's just in a bad mood. He's so angry and this and that. He doesn't have time for that. But no, it's customary to see Bernie Sanders smiling and actually having a good time. So I like that.
Even when he's killing it on stage.
Yeah, I like that he was actually able to have some of those moments. So let's get to the actual question that Aaron Burnett wanted to ask him, and that is about age, whether age should matter in this race, and his health as well.
Senator, we are all very glad you're feeling well, as you just said. But there is a question on a lot of people's minds, and I want to address it tonight. You're 78 years old, and you just had a heart attack. How do you reassure Democratic voters that you're up to the stress of the presidency?
Well, let me invite you all to a major rally we're having in Queens, New York, BernieSanders.com. We're going to have a special guest at that event, and we are going to be mounting a vigorous campaign all over this country. That is how I think I can reassure the American people. But let me take this moment, if I might, to thank so many people from all over this country, including many of my colleagues up here, for their love, for their prayers, for their well wishes. And I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I'm so happy to be back here with you this evening.
I don't like the chyron. I don't like the chyron on the bottom. Yeah. But, I know people will disagree with me, but I do think it's a valid question. I don't think that's something that you could avoid.
No.
You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to be like, don't ask him about that.
Right.
I'm like, it's something that, people have to consider. His age, his, virility.
Mm-hmm. As a supporter, you don't want it to affect him, given that he does seem like he's able to handle.
And he's very active.
This journey.
It's not just his campaign schedule, and rallies and whatnot, but he does walk.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I do think it's maybe a valid issue that had to be presented to him to answer. And what I am glad that didn't happen is it became like a huge conversation on stage.
True.
But I do think it was unnecessary, and I don't think it was asked in a very antagonistic way. So I will give it to C.
But the chyron was
how can you reassure voters? What are you going to say? I promise, the blood's flowing good.
Exactly.
I looked myself. I checked myself. Right.
All right, so here we're going to get to Tulsi Gabbard because, again, this is the same conversation. This is the same issue about age and, whether that should matter to voters. So Biden was asked the question, Elizabeth Warren was asked the question, because they are the three oldest candidates on the Democratic side. But then it was thrown to Tulsi Gabbard because she is the youngest, and she would be the youngest. No, she wouldn't be would she be the youngest president ever elected? Yeah, she would be the youngest president ever elected. She's 38 right now. So she was given this question. And we're going to show it to you Tulsi Gabbard's way. Because Tulsi Gabbard is using what happened here to try to say something. That's pretty much what I can say. So here we go.
You would be the youngest president if elected. Should age matter when choosing a president?
I'm glad you asked, because I was going to say it's not fair to ask these three about their health and their fitness to serve as president, but not every other one of us. I am grateful to have been trained very well by the Army and do my best to stay in shape. But here's the real question I believe you should be asking is, who is fit to serve as our commander-in-chief? This is the most important responsibility that the president has. What Donald Trump has been doing in Syria and what we have just seen with him inviting the Turkey to come in and slaughter the Kurds show what an unfit president looks like. It highlights how critical it is that we have a president and commander-in-chief who is ready on day one, bringing experience and understanding in foreign policy and national security, bringing the experience that I have, both serving in Congress now for nearly 7 years, serving on the Foreign Affairs Committee, serving on the Armed Services Committee, subcommittees related to terrorism and upcoming threats, serving on the Homeland Security Committee, the experience that I have as a soldier, serving for over 16 years in the Army National Guard, deploying twice to the Middle East, being able to serve in different capacities, joint training exercises, training the Kuwait National Guard. I understand the importance of our national security. I am prepared to do this job, to fulfill this responsibility as Commander-in-Chief on day one. I'd like to ask our other candidates this question. I'd like to start with Senator Warren. What her experience and background is.
I'm sorry, thank you. We're going to take another break now. The CNN New York Times debate live from Otterbein University here in Ohio. We'll be back in just
Before we comment on that, yes, whoever was in the chat, I did mean virility. Yes, I did mean virility. A man's quality of strength, his sex drive, his manliness. Yeah, his virility. All that is, I guess, encompasses a man's health. So I know that's why you asked. You say virility because that's associated with sex drive. Hey, Bernie Sanders probably be, I'm just saying.
All right, let's move on.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Let's move on. Let's move on, though.
Pretty sure he'd be blowing James back.
Yeah, okay.
He'd be blowing James.
Okay. All right. So, Tulsi Gabbard here. And like I said, we thought it was important to give it to you the way Tulsi Gabbard is seeing the situation, how she responded to it. So she included the words in this clip. She included, surprise, CNN cuts off Tulsi to protect Warren. So again, the question is about, should age matter? She would be the youngest president ever elected. Should age matter? And so she goes into her background and how she is qualified to handle the role as commander-in-chief. And then towards the end of her, she already had a response. Okay, she already talked for about, a minute?
Yeah, she
30 seconds, something like that.
A lot of amount of time. The question is directed at her.
Yes.
And she has a allotted amount of time to answer that question.
Yes. And then so at the end, and when the moderator is already saying, okay, it's time to wrap it up, then she tries to throw it to everybody. She wants to hear from everybody what qualifies them to be the next commander-in-chief. And specifically, she wants that question to go to Elizabeth Warren first. And so she directs it to Elizabeth Warren, to which the moderator, and I believe it was Aaron Burnett, that was shutting that down, saying that, hold on, we got a commercial break, we're going to go, this and that. And you could see, once the feed was going to commercial break, Tulsi Gabbard was nodding her head she was in disgust of what CNN was doing. And of course, we know she was in disgust because now we see the way she framed the situation. Mm-hmm. She framed the situation as though CNN cut her off and went to break so as to protect Elizabeth Warren. Does that hold water?
Hell to the no. Hell to the no. And look, do we like CNN? No. Is it easy to hate on CNN? Yes.
Very
Do
easy.
They deserve to hate? Yes. In general? Yes. In general. CNN deserves your hate. The hate needs to flow through you anytime CNN is mentioned. But that's just in general.
Too far.
I know, right? I'm on some damn Star Wars shit. But anyway, But it doesn't apply in every case, and this is one of the cases. This is the case where it does not apply. I think she is trying to exploit that hate for ESPN.
Oh, most definitely.
Sorry, that's just how I see it based on what we just saw. Like, what did you see there?
Tulsi Gabbard was trying to become a moderator. She was trying to take control of this whole event and
I got
say
a question for all
I
of
got
you.
a question. You know what? Forget the moderators. Forget this commercial break. I got a question.
Forget
for
that my
Elizabeth
time is
Warren.
up.
Yeah, forget all of that. I'm going to be running things from now. So Aaron Barnett, shh, be quiet. Anders Cooper, if you got something to say, shh, be quiet. I'm going to hear from Elizabeth Warren first, and then we're going to go around and hear from the other 11 or the other 10 candidates as well. It never works that way. And what I really don't like about this is that she made it about CNN protecting Warren, which she was already being cut off because her time had already expired.
So thank you,
it wasn't
Congresswoman.
about Warren. She hadn't even mentioned Warren when she was being cut off.
When Aaron Barnett said, "Thank you, Congresswoman," that was the indication that her time was up. That was a few seconds before Warren attempted her redirect to the entire stage, but really it was directed at Warren. But I think that was just a little bit disingenuous. No, it was
a little bit.
I know, right? I'm just being a little bit gracious, but that was completely just disingenuous. I don't see how she framed it like that, because that would take so much coordination in a short period of time between the moderators and the producers. You see what I'm saying? There's no way that could have been coordinated. Okay, shut everything down. Like, go to commercial. Like,
But you know what? You know what makes this even more ridiculous? Elizabeth Warren was challenged all night. Elizabeth Warren was actually challenged all night. And it was coming from different directions as well. It wasn't just one particular candidate that was challenging Elizabeth Warren. There were multiple candidates that was challenging Elizabeth Warren. So if CNN was seeking to protect Elizabeth Warren, then why was it just...
why they wait till that moment?
Yeah, they just wanted to protect her from you?
She was taking it on the chin left and right.
So again, so it's about Tulsi. They wanted to protect her from Tulsi?
I think she's doing a little bit too much with that ad. But she has to, though. I understand. I understand why she has to do it. And the sad truth is, she's desperate.
She is desperate.
She's desperate.
And this is a desperate move. Yeah.
She's got to make herself into a sympathetic figure, and that's what she was trying to do. I'm just not buying it. You know what I'm saying?
Nah. Of course, because we heard what happened. You saw what happened. Okay, Congresswoman, before she even uttered the name Elizabeth Warren, desperation does many things. It causes you to do things.
Yeah, it does. Desperation kind of makes you a little bit illogical. But.
All right, so we're going to go to... all right, so yeah, this exchange that Senators Kamala Harris and Elizabeth Warren had, the subject was tech companies and if tech companies should be broken up or not. Kamala Harris, she wants to see Twitter act responsibly. She wants to see Twitter, in essence, kill the account of President Trump because she believes that
he violates their terms of service all the
yes.
time by inciting violence,
right,
being vile.
Yes, he's dangerous.
Other accounts get suspended for the same thing.
Right. So she wanted to see if Elizabeth Warren, because Elizabeth Warren is in the camp of wanting to break up the tech companies, and she wants to see them act responsibly. So she wants to get Elizabeth Warren on her side to, I guess, advocate for Twitter to cancel the account of President Trump. So this is that exchange.
We really need to address the elephant in the room, and that is how campaigns are financed.
You can't say you're for corporate responsibility if it doesn't apply to everyone.
I announced this morning that I'm not going to take any money from big tech executives, from Wall Street executives. We've already agreed, Bernie and I, we're not taking any money from big pharma executives. You can't go behind closed doors and take the money of these executives and then turn around and expect that these are the people who are actually finally going to enforce the laws. We need campaign finance rules
Thank you,
and
Senator Warren.
practices
Senator Harris.
that support us all.
You can't. It does not represent a system of justice to say that the rules will apply differently to different people. This is a matter, you are saying, of holding big tech accountable. holding big tech accountable because they have an outsized influence on people's perceptions about issues, and they actually influence behaviors. We all have to agree this is their power. It is immense.
Senator Klobuchar, let me bring you in here. Your response.
I'm not finished. I'm not finished. And so what I am saying is that it seems to me that you would be able to join me in saying the rule has to apply to Twitter the same way it does to Facebook.
Look, I think all of the rules should apply across the board. I don't have a problem with that.
So you will
what
join
I
me in
do
saying
have
Twitter
a
should shut down
problem
that
with
account.
Is that if we're going to talk seriously about breaking up big tech, then we should ask if people are taking money from the big tech executives. If we're going to talk seriously about breaking up big drug companies, we should ask if people are financing their campaigns by taking money from big drug executives.
I don't like either one of them in this situation.
Yeah.
Because one, Warren did a classic move where she didn't directly answer the question. Kamala Harris, her issue was about holding Twitter accountable.
Or making Twitter hold Donald Trump accountable.
Sorry. Yeah, but still like holding Twitter accountable and in turn holding Donald Trump accountable about, I guess, holding to their terms of service. Then Elizabeth Warren goes on to talk about money in politics. And I was like, that just seemed, I was like, and then it looked like, I guess it's related, but it really doesn't get to the meat of Kamala's question. It looked like Kamala was very confused. She was like, what?
Yeah, it's just.
She's like, what? So I like that moment because they're both confused.
Yeah.
You know,
they're not talking about the same thing.
They're not talking about the same thing. I personally, like, I don't know how advantageous that would be. I don't know how effective that would be. Or I don't know how she would be able to get a social media company, a tech company, to impose their terms of service on one particular person.
Right.
And maybe she's just using Trump as a reference point. But I don't know if, I guess that she was trying to, Kamala was trying to make this her moment. This is her issue, and she thought that Warren should be with her. She probably knew that Warren wouldn't. So she was just trying to use it as another situation to place herself in a more, I guess, a virtuous position. Like, hey, I want Trump held accountable on Twitter, and you don't. And you want to hold these tech companies accountable. But I'm like, I'm not so sure maybe they're using accountable in a different way, maybe in a different context. I do think it's funny they're saying accountable because that's, again, another reference to Elizabeth Warren's thing, accountable capitalism. But the thing about Twitter is, do you really think they're gonna
No.
Donald Trump? He brings a lot of traffic.
Yeah, and he's the president of the United States. It's just I don't think they want that fight.
And
no matter what he says.
And honestly, no matter what he says, I know it's a whole. I know again. I think Kamala kind of has a good motive because he does he does incite violence.
He does.
He does incite violence. He does.
Neo-Nazis and white supremacists. Yeah.
So I understand the reason, but I'm not so sure if I think it's a futile fight, and I think maybe Warren thinks that too.
I just think it's interesting that Warren is deflecting to the issue of money in politics and who you're accepting money from. Are you accepting money from these tech companies, executives at these tech companies and this and that? And it's just interesting that she's going that route when, we recently talked about how she's going to be at these big fundraisers, with these wealthy donors, not for her, not specifically for her campaign, but for the DNC, which if she is the Democratic nominee, it will be for a campaign. So like I said, it's just interesting that she wants to go there and present herself as some pure type of candidate that is above all that, which she's not. All right, so we're gonna go to. So they talked about Ohio. They are in Ohio, and they talked about the Ohio abortion ban. That has not been implemented yet. It's definitely being contested in the court as we speak. So this is Senator Kamala Harris speaking about that.
Ohio is now one of several states that has banned abortions after as early as 6 weeks of pregnancy. Many women don't even know they are pregnant at that time. The Ohio law, like many others, is being challenged in the courts and has not yet taken effect. Senator Harris, if states prevail on restricting abortion, what's your plan to stop them?
My plan is as follows. For any state that passes a law that violates the Constitution, and in particular Roe v. Wade, our Department of Justice will review that law to determine if it is compliant with Roe v. Wade and the Constitution, and if it is not, that law will not go into effect. That's called preclearance. Because the reality is that while we still have, as I said earlier, these state legislators who are outdated and out of touch, mostly men who are telling women what to do with their bodies, then there needs to be accountability and consequence. But, I'll go further. You may have seen it. I questioned Brett Kavanaugh when I was a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee and asked him, as a nominee to serve on the United States Supreme Court, could he think of any law that tells a man what to do with his body? And the answer was no. The reality of it is, this is still a fundamental issue of justice for women in America. Women have been given the responsibility to perpetuate the human species. Our bodies were created to do that. And it does not give any other person the right to tell a woman what to do with that body. It is her body. It is her right. It is her decision.
Senator Harris, thank you.
I think that was strong.
It was strong until the very end, though. Like, I think this is one of those low-hanging fruit things that I don't think anybody...
I don't think it takes a lot of effort.
Yeah, it doesn't take a lot of effort. I think everybody on that stage would be like, that's kind of the direction that we want to go. Like, trying to ascertain as to whether some of these type of abortion bans, I guess the process of trying to close these clinics is constitutional. I do think that's a good discussion. Now, I did have a slight problem with her saying that, like, women are here to kind of, I forgot what word she used, but like procreate. Like perpetuate the race. Like, that's what our bodies are designed to do. And I'm just like, okay, I guess because we're talking about pregnancy and talking about abortion, yeah, that's valid, but I don't think that's necessarily true, you know what I'm saying? Because women still have value even if they elect not to have children or not to go through that process, you know what I'm saying?
Right, but still, to advance the species, you do need a woman.
True.
You do need, I mean, that's
maybe not in 100 years, maybe not need men either, man. Should maybe on some like Matrix shit where people in some tubes and like test tube babies.
Yeah, it's possible. Not there right now, but look, for the most part, I agree with what she said. I'm definitely not in support of these states and these conservative legislatures trying to implement these bans on abortion. As she said when she questioned Brett Kavanaugh, is there a law? Is there anything on the books that prevents a man and his body? Like, is there anything that prevents or restricts a man making a choice about his body? And of course there's nothing. So like I said, I'm definitely supportive of what she said. Like you said, it's low-hanging fruit. I think a lot of people would sound very strong on this issue as well, but this was Kamala's moment right here. I think that was her best moment, actually. All right, so now we're kind of go back to the healthcare debate. Towards the end of the debate, they got back into, I guess, big proposals, big ideas. Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, they're viewed as trying to change the country in a dramatic way. Big, bold ideas. And so Joe Biden is asked if that's the best way to go forward. Pretty much, yeah, that was the question to him. So this is going to be a back and forth between Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders. And then we're going to get to Elizabeth Warren's response after this clip.
I'm going to say something that is probably going to offend some people here, but I'm the only one on the stage that's gotten anything really big done. From the Violence Against Women Act to making sure that we passed the Affordable Care Act, to be in a position where we, in fact, took almost a $90 billion act that kept us from going into a depression, putting us in a position where I was able to end able to end the issue of gun sales in terms of assault weapons. And so the question is, who is best prepared? We all have good ideas. The question is, who's going to be able to get it done? How can you get it done? And I'm not suggesting they can't, but I'm suggesting that that's what we should look at. And part of that requires you not being vague. Tell people what it's going to cost, how you're going to do it, and why you're going to do it. That's the way to get it done. Presidents are supposed to be able to persuade.
Just to clarify, Vice President, who are you saying is being vague?
Well, the senator said she's being vague on the issue of, actually both of them being vague on the issue of the Medicare for all. No, look, here's the deal. Come on. It costs $30 trillion. Guess what? That's over $3 trillion a year. It's more than the entire federal budget. Let me finish, okay?
You'll both get it.
If you eliminated the entire Pentagon, every single thing, plane, ship, troop, the buildings, everything, satellites, it would pay for a total of 4 months. 4 months. Where do you get the rest? Where does it come from?
Two things.
Senator Sanders, respond.
In two ways. Joe, you talked about working with Republicans and getting things done. But you know what you also got done, and I say this as a good friend. You got the disastrous war in Iraq done. You got a bankruptcy bill, which is hurting middle-class families all over this country. You got trade agreements like NAFTA and PNTR with China done, which have cost us 4 million jobs. And let's get to Medicare for all. Let's be honest. We spend twice as much per person as do the people of any other major country on earth. And the answer is, if we have the guts, and I would like to see the Democratic Party have that guts, to stand up to the drug companies and the insurance companies and tell them that the function of health care is to guarantee care to all people, not to make $100 billion in profit. If we stood together, we could create the greatest health care system in the world.
Vice President Biden, you can respond, and then Senator Warren.
We can do that without Medicare for all. We can do that by adding a public option. We can. And we can afford to do it.
You got to take on the greed and the profiteering of the healthcare industry.
Let him respond, Vice President.
The greed and profiteering of those insurance companies, they are as much against my bill as they are anybody else. They were strongly against Obamacare. They know it costs them, and it's going to take away the right of people to choose, the 160 million people out there who've negotiated their health insurance, and they want to keep it. They should have a right to keep it.
Whoa. Whoa. Biden got a little testy there.
He did.
He got a little testy. What was it?
He feels like, look, he was saying that we can't be vague with our plans. And he started by saying that Elizabeth Warren's being vague, but then he said that both of them are being vague, Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, which Bernie Sanders is not being vague about whatsoever, because he is saying that, yes, taxes will be raised. But then he starts touting himself, saying that, hey, I'm Joe Biden. I actually got big things done, you know? I got things done.
Yo, he was, again, I did this. I did this. He was playing Mr. Big again.
Exactly.
Mr. Biggs.
I have the power. And then, you know, I like what Bernie Sanders, you know, his retort, because he said, well, you know, you did get things done. Yeah, Joe, you got some things done. You got the Iraq war done. You got these bad trade deals done. You got all of that done. Congratulations.
Yo,
you know,
I was like, that was definitely an impromptu response.
Yeah, I don't think that was planned. I don't think he could have planned that response. But then Joe Biden, then again, now he has to retort, and specifically on the idea of healthcare and their differences, the way they see things differently on healthcare, Medicare for all versus the public option, and still maintaining the ACA. He says that.
Yeah, I know, it's fun. It's hard to read, isn't it? It's hard to read it.
He said, Joe Biden says that the private health insurance industry is as much against his plan as they are with any plan, as in Medicare for all. So they are against Medicare for all, but they're against Joe's idea as well.
No. They're more against my idea. They're more against my idea. The idea that keeps them in business. They hate that.
Oh, and they hated the ACA. Oh, yeah, it was bad business for them, even though the ACA didn't change the game. Again, it did lead to more people being covered. The pre-existing conditions was definitely a value to insurance, no doubt. But it didn't change the game whatsoever. They're still making hand over fist in profits. So that private healthcare industry is as much against Joe's plan than Bernie's plan? Wow. And look, Joe Biden and Pete Buttigieg, to a lesser degree, during this debate, this last debate. Now, Joe Biden puts a price tag on it. He says, yeah, it's going to cost $30 trillion. And look, the entire Pentagon budget isn't that, and blah, 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 and all of this stuff, right? Pete Buttigieg has talked about how this Medicare for All is a multi-trillion-dollar deal. So they're trying to portray this Medicare for All as a bad deal when you're talking about fiscally. Well, we don't have enough money to do it. There's better ideas out there. There are more affordable ways to do this thing. Now, I like Bernie's response saying that we pay way more than any other country across the globe when it comes to healthcare. But when you're talking about $30 trillion, what Joe Biden is trying to put out there for the people, I've said this many times before on the subject of healthcare, when people like Joe Biden are trying to just criticize Medicare for All and the cost. Right now, okay? This is 2019. It's look, I don't have the numbers for 2019 because I don't, of course that hasn't been calculated as of yet. But I can guess that it's probably going to be more. I'm going out on a limb here, but I can guess it's going to be more. But in 2016, the U.S. spent $3.4 trillion on healthcare. $3.4 trillion on healthcare. This was 2016. Now, healthcare costs have just been going up. Now, Obamacare, the ACA, it kind of stopped it from going up so much, but healthcare costs still rise every year. So, again, in 2016, it was $3.4 trillion. You extrapolate that over 10 years, we have what? We have what? 34 trillion dollars?
That's basically enough.
$34 trillion. So even if it is $30 trillion for Medicare for All, it looks like we are saving money. Looks like we're saving money and everybody is covered and nobody has out-of-pocket expenses. But that's not a better situation for some reason. No, the public option, in which not everybody's going to be covered, because not everybody's going to be able to afford to be covered, that's better. And the health insurance company, the private health insurance company, is more afraid of that than Medicare for All.
Medicare for all that wanted. And it's not all of it.
I also have talked about this too. The CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, they project by the year 2025 that healthcare costs are going to rise to $5.5 trillion a year.
So as Joe Biden...
and in 2016, we had the ACA. Mm-hmm. So this is with the current
system.
ACA.
So with Klobuchar, Biden, and particularly Buttigieg, because they're the more vocal ones that challenge Bernie Sanders.
Right.
Have they addressed this increased cost of healthcare? How are they going to address this the increasing cost of healthcare?
I don't know. All I know is that Joe Biden always says that his plan is significantly less expensive.
And he has this. He kind of used a Pete Buttigieg talking point. You see that? Like you're taking away choice.
Yep.
You're taking away people's choice.
Right. Which again, people don't have choice right now. They get to choose which plan they want to spend on. That's what they get to choose. People don't. Again, people care about how much they're spending and what they're getting for it. That's what they care about. They also care about where they can go, the healthcare facility that they can go to, and their doctors, their healthcare providers. That's what they do care about. With Medicare for All, they would still be able to choose their healthcare providers. And there wouldn't be Any added cost. No added cost.
But your taxes will be higher. Or for some people.
So, all right. So this is Elizabeth Warren, I guess, responding to the idea that Joe Biden has done big things, and he's the only one on that stage has done big things.
Senator Warren, your response.
So you started this question with how you got something done. You know, following the financial crash of 2008, I had an idea for a consumer agency that would keep giant banks from cheating people. And all of the Washington insiders and strategic geniuses said, don't even try, because you will never get it passed. And sure enough, the big banks fought us, the Republicans fought us, some of the Democrats fought us, but we got that agency passed into law. It has now forced big banks to return more than $12 billion directly to people they cheated. I served in the Obama administration. I know what we can do by executive authority, and I will use it. In Congress, on the first day, I will pass my anti-corruption bill, which will beat back the influence of money and repeal the filibuster. And the third, we want to get something done in America. We have to get out there and fight for the things that touch people's lives.
I agreed with, let me, she referenced me. I agreed with the great job she did. And I went on the floor and got you votes. I got votes for that bill. I convinced people to vote for it. So let's get those things straight, too.
Senator Warren, do you want to respond?
I am deeply grateful to President Obama, who fought so hard to make sure that agency was passed into law. And I am deeply grateful to every single person who fought for it and who helped pass it into law. But understand—
You did a hell of a job of your job.
Thank you.
Ooh, that must have hurt. A little bit. Like, a little bit. That must hurt a little bit. Oh.
That was a very...
And like, that was a direct shot to the gut.
That was a swift fall back down to earth.
You did this on stage?
It's like...
You did this to me on stage?
And you know what? She said it so slowly.
Yes.
She said it so slowly.
Yo, that was so obvious, Shade, man. That I am very grateful
to President Obama. I was like, dang.
Oh, after Joe Biden just said, I got you, folks. I got you. I stood on the floor and I got you, folks.
I did this. Man, you ain't do shit. Like again,
gosh, man.
That's a situation where he set himself up for that. Wow. He's been doing this the whole time. I did this with Obama. And actually, it was more me. I was the front man. I did all these things.
Oh,
it's almost like
Obama himself.
It's like almost like Obama ain't did nothing. Like it was all him. I was behind the scenes.
Yeah. No, not behind the scenes.
Oh, my bad. I was on front stage working my magic. Oh, and I was like, you need to understand this, Liz.
So basically,
you need to understand
Obama
this.
was just sitting in the office, or maybe not even in the office. He was just somewhere else. He was like, yo, I don't feel like doing this. You do this, man. You be the president today.
Again, he set himself up for that. Like, I think he was still a little set aside by how Bernie dropped him.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And he's taking 2 knockout punches in a row and he's just frustrated.
But this was more embarrassing.
This was because the way it was done.
Because I think he thought it was strong to be like, look, I was with you. I got you those votes.
But did you see
I helped you.
But did you see what happened when he realized, damn, I just got. You see, that realization first came to smile. He was like, damn, son.
It was like about to put her in her place.
You know that meme that has like the smiley mask, but the like meme face behind of it? That's exactly what Biden was doing. And when he lost that. He was like, okay, I'll give you credit.
You did a good job.
You did a good job on the job.
And she was like, thank you.
She was basically saying, boo, no. I don't care, boo. Like, boo, I don't care. Like, I just got you. Like, thank you. Like, you already stepped in it. You already stepped in it, so it's too late. Don't
So
try to ask
first-
for like
so
some sort of reconciliation now.
First he wanted to get aggressive. That ain't work.
That
And
ain't
then he was
work.
like, well, look, you did a good job.
Oh, hey, look, you did a good job. I was like, dog, it's over. It's over. You just got roasted, like, in front of everybody. Like,
God,
calm
man.
it down, bro.
Bad look, man. It's a real bad look for you, Biden. All right. So we're going to get to, one of the last clips from this debate. Actually, this is the last clip of substance that happened at the debate. We have a few other things that we got to get to.
Oh, Lord.
But yeah, this is the last clip of substance. This is Bernie Sanders, Senator Bernie Sanders, talking about why he is, or I guess why his strategy, his movement and what he wants to get done, why that's a better strategy than what Trump has. Why it's the best strategy to beat Donald Trump.
Senator Sanders, why is your approach more likely to beat President Trump?
I'll tell you why.
Please
And here's the
respond.
radical reason why. It's what the American people want.
Yes.
All right? The American people do not want tax breaks for billionaires. They want the rich to start paying their fair share of taxes. Poll came out yesterday. 71% of Democrats support Medicare for all. The people of this country understand that we've got to make public colleges and universities tuition free. And more Americans, including Republicans, understand we need bold action if we're going to save this planet for our children and our grandchildren. The way you win an election in this time in history is not the same old, same old. You have to inspire people. You have to excite people. You got to bring working people and young people and poor people into the political process because they know you stand for them, not corporate America.
I mean, I'm not really going to talk about what Bernie had to say, but kind of see how that compares to maybe like most of the other candidates and how that reflects on them. Because essentially, I think what they're trying to do is trying to sell the idea that popular proposals are unpopular. That's why it was important for Bernie to mention the popularity of Medicare for all, as well as certain other proposals, because we have all these centrists on stage trying to like present this case, well, it can't get done because Americans don't want it.
They want choice.
They want choice. I was like, well, that's not what the polls say.
Exactly.
So if that's not what the polls say, and that's not what the people say they want, the majority of the people say they want, then what are you doing? You're going against what the people want.
But they're acting like they really have the ear to the ground. Like, this is what people want. They don't want that Medicare for all. They want choice. Even though they don't have choice right now, they want choice. I'm not giving them choice, but they want choice.
Because I said so.
Because I said so.
Because I said so.
All right. So yeah, like I said, that was the last clip of substance. Of course, I don't know if we do it every single time. We might do it every single time. I'm not sure. But it always seems that during these debates, there's always these very lame
attempts at humor.
Yes, these attempts that should never make their way to the stage. They should never make their way to the stage.
They shouldn't make their way anywhere.
No.
They shouldn't make their way to the living room, to the kitchen, outside, in the car, in the shower, nowhere, at a barbecue.
But they do.
Nowhere.
But they do. So we're going to show you the three moments that, there were probably more, but these were, I think, the top three just most lame moments that should have been left on the floor of whatever room that they were in prepping.
Where they constructed
this debate.
Yes, where they constructed this like
their plans. It's just ridiculous. But anyway, Amy Klobuchar, she has 2 appearances. All right,
of course.
So there's 3, and she makes her way into 2 of them. All right, so these are those.
We have not talked about what we need to do to protect ourselves from Russia invading our election. This wasn't meddling. That's what I do when I call my daughter on a Saturday night and ask her what she's doing. Sorry. This was much more serious than that.
And I feel qualified to say this as the vegan on the stage. Going back to the fact that it's rich to me that we asked 3 people about their health. When looking at this stage, we know that the most unhealthy person running for the presidency in 2020 is Donald Trump.
Why I have been in Pennsylvania and in Michigan and in Wisconsin and all over Ohio and in Iowa, because I think we need to build a blue Democratic wall around those states and make Donald Trump pay for it.
Senator Warren,
I think you need to do it again. I think you need to do it again. Because somebody in the chat actually did it. I think it was Smitty.
Did what?
You know what? Sharon did it. Or Shayna. I think you need to do it again.
What the? Boo?
Yeah. That's your thing, man. I'm not going to steal that, man. That's your signature, man.
Boo. Just look at that last clip of Amy Klobuchar. Look how proud of herself she is. Look how proud she is. There's another one. Look how proud she is of herself.
Yo, she's proud of herself, even though she ain't got no reaction. She's like, did you see that? Did you see that? Look what I did. I cracked a funny.
It's so painful. It's so painful, man.
It's like that. That's beyond mom jokes. That's beyond mom and dad jokes. That is something.
I'm sweating, man.
That is like some. No, you know what? I was gonna say crackhead uncle jokes, but no, crackhead uncle jokes are actually good.
Oh man. Yeah, they can be funny.
Good.
Yeah,
they can be funny.
These were not funny
unintentionally, but still, they can be funny.
And see, they're even less funny because you know they came prepared with these jokes and they don't come off the right way. Meddling is where
I do to my
I asked her what she's doing on Saturday night. Sorry.
I like how she's like talking in a way that like, wait for the punchline. Bam.
Hey, what we need to do is build a blue wall around these states and make Donald Trump pay for it. I'm witty.
Like, get out of here.
Stop it. Please, stop it. Stop it.
Stop trying so hard. Cory Booker's was like, not funny, but it wasn't
forced.
as cringy.
Yeah, it wasn't
because it didn't really have a lot of like punchy points. It was just like, I'm vegan and Donald Trump is unhealthy. Like, so that means I can beat him. Like, what?
Oh man, stop it. Please, just stop it. Just please,
I'm a vegan, so I'm the only one who could beat Donald Trump, who eats Big Macs all day.
Oh man, you're gonna get me crying up here, man. I saw. I think Calvin Darden say in the chat said, Amy Klobuchar was almost about to cry. Like her almost about to cry performance made him laugh. There was a few times where her voice was like shaky, and it sounded like she was gonna cry.
Yeah,
but
whatever. It did.
Whatever. Now, like I said, that was the last of the actual debate clips that we have. Now, we do have one clip, and I wanted to show you this clip. This is of Van Jones. This is post-debate. Elizabeth Warren is sitting down. You know how things go afterwards. The spin room and the media is there. So Elizabeth Warren sits down for the CNN panel, and excuse me, most of the questioning is about Medicare for all because they all realize how she didn't answer the question, and she won't answer the question, and she won't just admit that yes, taxes are going to have to be raised. So I believe all of them were asking pretty much the same question. Hey, are you going to admit this? Are you scared to admit this? Are you not going to admit it because you're not going to do it? Just in different ways. So Van Jones has a take here. Van Jones has a take. That's
actually the punchline.
Oh man.
Right there. You don't even need to hear it.
Van Jones has a take. I'm not, you know what? We're not even going to show you Elizabeth Warren's response because it's unnecessary because she'll have the same response that we saw, 4 different times at the actual debate. But this is Van Jones' narrative, his question.
I know people.
Mm-hmm.
People don't like to be forced.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds to me when you say Medicare for all, maybe even who don't want it, that you're forcing people. So when Mayor Pete says Medicare for all who want it,
Mm-hmm.
I like that. To me, it seems like you got a public health care like the public subway.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, to ride the subway, you'd have to be either very poor Medicaid or very old Medicare. What Pete's saying is if you want to ride that subway, you can ride it. But if you want to be in a Lyft, an Uber, get a pogo stick, or a little whatever, you can do that too. You're saying you got to get in the subway. I don't care if you want to lift a helicopter, get in the subway. Why is that good politics? Don't you think America's going to feel like you're forcing something on them they don't want?
Let me do this slightly differently, because I'll tell you how.
But isn't that a brilliant metaphor?
Hey, let me tell you.
Isn't that a brilliant metaphor? I'm witty. I'm witty. Why are you forcing something on the American people that they don't want? Even though we have talked about it before, and Bernie Sanders, he brought it up at the debate that most Democrats do want Medicare for all, and actually most people want Medicare for all. So why are you forcing these things, these awful things on people? Why are you're forcing them to do something as if they actually have choice right now? They don't have choice. His metaphor is so unwarranted, it's so ridiculous, like the public subway system. Hey, you can only be old or, what did he say, disabled? You can
Something
be
like that.
Or old or poor.
Yeah.
Yes, because old for Medicare and then poor for Medicaid.
Medicaid, yeah.
So, you can only be old or poor, and what you're saying is that you're going to force people to get on this public system, this public transportation system, even if they want to choose the
pogo stick,
ride on a pogo stick,
Uber,
a cab, Uber, Lyft. What? It's such
Segway,
a ridiculous.
Whatever. We're talking about accessibility here.
We're talking about life or death.
Life or death and accessibility. And if you're talking
necessities,
about a necessity, and I do think that, like, for some people, that the subway is a necessity. It gets them from point A to point B. But it's
not the same.
It's not the same thing.
No, it's not the same. And this is so disingenuous again, because Van Jones is trying to portray the idea, trying to promote the idea that currently Americans have choice in healthcare.
Actually, he's actually undercutting his point, because cities kind of fund those projects.
Yeah, they do.
Tax dollars fund those projects, right?
Uh-huh.
I mean, and it's not the same, because you're talking about specifically healthcare. There's not, like, when you're talking about healthcare, not insurance. I think what he was doing there, he was conflating healthcare and health insurance. You see what I'm saying? Because the only way that analogy works is if people have the choice of their health insurance companies. That's why he was naming those other options as examples.
Right.
But those two things don't go together, because we need an efficient system, like an efficient system that caters to one specific need, and that's healthcare. Transportation, there's so many options.
Right.
Transportation is a vague thing. Healthcare is not. Healthcare is healthcare. It's one thing.
It's one thing. There are many different companies, but do employees have the ability to choose between any of those different companies? No. That job is tasked to their employer.
That's why it undercuts his point. It doesn't make sense. Because people don't really have a choice. Especially those who are on insurance at their job.
I hate his
Or insurance, or they can't afford insurance.
Yep.
Again, that's why it undercuts his point, because there are subsidies available for people to travel. You know that, right?
Yes. I hate his point, because it's ridiculous. It's nonsensical. It's disingenuous. I hate it.
It's bad.
You're forcing people to do something they don't want to do. Who says that they don't want to do it? You?
Again, it goes back to the same point. Like, the majority of people do want it. So,
all right. So, excuse me. So, okay. I guess we can get to, but before we get into the other area that we're about to go into, what Bernie Sanders alluded to during the debate.
Where he's having a rally in Queens.
Right. Before we get to that, just overall impressions of the debate, winners, losers, this and that. Look, one big takeaway from this debate was the emphasis on Elizabeth Warren. Again, this is the first debate where she was looked at as the front runner. So she definitely got a lot of the emphasis. She spoke the longest, by far, actually. I think Bernie came in like 5th or something like that, I believe. She was routinely challenged, and some of that was to her, You know?
Oh yeah, some of that was her own fault.
Yeah, that was her own fault. You know, because she wouldn't actually answer the question specifically. But that stuck out to me, that she was the focus for not only the CNN moderators but the other candidates as well. But another thing that stuck out to me is that there were multiple occasions where Elizabeth Warren sort of, and maybe I shouldn't even say sort of, where she actually did like bear hug Bernie, in which she, I guess, framed her narrative and her position and her ideology as a me and Bernie thing. Hey, we are against this or we are for that. And it's just, it was just very
forced.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I was. It was just very interesting to see that. You know,
considering, it was just, you're right. It's interesting to see that, considering a few days ago, he separated himself from her.
He did. Yeah, by saying that she was the one that said she was a capitalist
to her bones.
To her bones.
I'm not.
Yeah, he said he's not with that whatsoever. It was just, like I said, it was just interesting to see her, you know, riding on Bernie's coattails without actually committing to being with him.
At first, I thought it was some sort of ploy by CNN. I thought it was a conspiracy to make Elizabeth Warren look like a sympathetic figure. Hey, let's have all these candidates attack her, and then she'll have all the answers ready, and she's going to come out looking like a bulldog, like on top of everything. She's going to just come out looking good. That was my little conspiracy theory. Right. But it quickly crumbled, because it did seem like a Elizabeth Warren-centered debate, but then I started realizing that it's Elizabeth Warren-centered because she made it that way.
Yeah, she did.
And so I didn't really rank them like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you know, whatever. Yeah. I probably did the same thing you did, like winners and losers.
Right.
And honestly, I have her in the loser bracket. I have her in the loser bracket because, like, there were too many times where she looked like a deer caught in headlights. She did have a couple of good moments with Joe Biden. That was good. But my bar is higher for her, considering that she's considered 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever. But I have her in the L category because she was so evasive.
Yeah.
Especially about an issue that's so important, one of the most important issues. I just felt that she was being too evasive 4 times. Like, that's why I have her in the L category. I can't have her in that winner circle. I will say I'm completely eliminating Bernie from this because we support Bernie. And I don't think, I'm just biased, so he's getting swept away because really what we're looking for is how he presents his ideas and how much energy he has, and that was there. Because we already kind of know his position and his, you know, what backs or what energizes his proposals and the details of those proposals. So we already kind of know that. So I'm not even gonna put Bernie in anything because we support him already. I'm just gonna worry about those other people. I ain't gonna go all the way down my list. I'll just kick it to you so we can just go back and forth.
Yeah. Look, I think it was a strong night for Bernie Sanders. I think, given that, you know, his ideology is the closest to mine, and that I do believe that he showed well, and not just showed well, but that he let his personality show off as well. It wasn't all gruff all the time, which, you know, people have such a problem with. I don't, but still.
He did say, I wrote the damn bill,
yeah,
but he said it
smiling.
He said it smiling.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Last time he was like, I wrote the damn bill. I wrote the damn bill, man.
Again,
this time he was like, look, like I said before, exactly. I wrote the damn bill. Like, so, he was more.
I don't have a problem with his anger because I know where it stems from. So I never have a problem with that. But like I said, I think his character, you know, rubbed off very well. The question about his age and his health, I think that was a really good moment in which, you know, he thanked everybody for their warm wishes and just for their love and support. You know, got a round of applause. I just think, again, that connected with his overall messaging. I think he had the best night overall, more so than any other candidate. I would put Elizabeth Warren in the loser category because just the same situation. I mean, well, the same reasons that you laid out. She was very evasive, could not, or would not.
Okay, Dr. Seuss.
Yeah, could not or would not answer the question about the taxes, about Medicare for all. And even, I mean, she was challenged on it many times. She just would not do it. Even after the debate, she was challenged on it, would not do it.
After the debate, where they usually pull things out.
Yes. So I think it's a loss for her. Now, you know, of course, how that is going to play itself out. Is she going to lose any traction? I don't know. But it was a bad look on the debate stage. Other people, I'm not going to go through every single one of them, but I think the people that kind of stood out, I think Tom Steyer kind of stuck out because for one reason, this was his first time on a debate stage. And for another reason, he has already qualified for the fifth debate. So he's already going to be there. So this was our first look at him. And I think multiple answers that he gave.
He didn't stumble.
No, he didn't stumble. They were right on message. It wasn't like, hey, you know, well, this is Tom Steyer, the billionaire, so I don't know, you know, what kind of narrative is he going to provide? He's a billionaire. He's probably not really about what he's been trying to advocate for. But no, it was the same Tom Steyer that, you know.
So he's in the W category?
Yeah, I think he's in the
W. I can
W.
agree with that because he tends to go after billionaires and go after capitalism and go after the system that creates this economic inequality. I think he goes a little bit harder than Elizabeth Warren, in my opinion.
I think he does.
I think he goes a little bit harder. He indicts them more than Elizabeth Warren. Elizabeth Warren wants to make them just more accountable, more nice, more generous. So I'll put him in the W, but I put Biden in the L category. Like if there was a category below L,
damn,
I put him there. Like I don't remember him having a good moment. I remember him getting put in his place multiple times. I remember both Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders bringing him down to earth.
Yeah.
I think he didn't. He had a little. I think there's another little kind of riff he had during that debate. I can't remember who it was. Was it Buttigieg?
I don't know.
Either way. Like from the beginning, I think he handled the Hunter Biden question wrong.
Yeah, it was wrong.
Then he was clumsy. He took credit for, I guess, getting the CFPB Act passed. Like, really?
That was an embarrassing.
That was an embarrassing. No, I was like, you don't do that. Then Bernie Sanders, you know, he got caught in that moment that he always likes to have where he takes credit for everything during the Obama administration. I did this. I got this done. He's like, okay. You got that done?
Let's talk about some things you got done.
Let me call into question some other things you got done too, Mr. Biden.
Right.
And so like this entire debate, it seemed like he was on his heels more so than Warren, but he gets a super L.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I can't remember one good moment that Biden had either. He's been racking up L's. He's been racking up L's, man. I think he's like 0 for 4 right now. I think he's been racking up L's, and it's just because he just has the wrong ideology. He has the wrong background. It's just how much can you do with what he's trying to advocate for in his past, which he doesn't apologize for. It's like how much can you do with that? Like how much traction can you get with what he's trying to work with? You know,
it seems like he has a hard time like constructing seamless sentences.
Oh yeah,
you notice that? Like they're breaking up. Like it looks like he like switches modes all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And
see that's one of the things. You could definitely hold it. You hold him accountable for that, criticize him for that. That's not one of the most pressing things for me.
Correct.
You know, I mean, that's just
stubbornness. His stubbornness and unwillingness to admit his faults.
Yeah, maybe slower in thought. Maybe something like that. Not able to get his words right. This and that.
But he's not a bad politician because his thoughts are slow.
No, he's a bad politician because of his actual policies. So yeah, I agree. He takes an L, maybe 2 L's, something like that.
Super L. Super duper L. Super duper califragilistic. Expialidocious L.
After that, really, I think Amy Klobuchar was aggressive. Yes. I think Amy Klobuchar and Pete Buttigieg and I don't know O'Rourke. Those three. O'Rourke, Pete Buttigieg, and Amy Klobuchar, they had their kind of moments. Not that I agree with those moments.
Yeah, like with Warren. Buttigieg and Klobuchar had good moments with Warren, calling her out on the easiest thing possible. Though.
So they had their moments in which I guess they may have looked good in a centrist light. So the only way that they have a win, though, is if they can somehow gain some ground on Biden. I'm not sure that they did anything to gain ground on Biden.
If anybody gained ground on Biden, it would be Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
He's just constantly, like you said, taking L's. He's 0 for 4. I just had this. I wouldn't say this is his worst showing.
Most embarrassing.
There wasn't
maybe not most embarrassing.
Yeah, because there wasn't. I wouldn't say these were like gotcha moments.
Right.
Because they didn't seem like scripted or something, but these just seemed like very organic moments where Biden looked inept and like a fool, and it was just thrown in his face just like that. So this might be, to me, like his worst showing. Buttigieg, to me, he was just being that professional contrarian the whole time.
Yeah, he was.
But like, I guess, other than those couple of good points he made towards O'Rourke about his gun confiscation.
Right.
And towards Elizabeth Warren, with her not being able to explain or not being able to elaborate on tax rates. So those two moments, but like you said, it just seems as if
enough.
It's just not enough. And like I said, I give Buttigieg an L because it just looks like he's coming in there with an agenda, you know, to just like to shake things up, but not in a good way. To just throw just acid on everybody. Like he's just a professional contrarian troll at this time, a troll under a bridge. That's what it just seems like. He's just always trying to just like, well, that may be bold, but this is kind of bolder. Like he always talks about how we need to be bold. We need to do big things.
We don't have time for this. We don't have time for that.
But what you're talking about, that's too big. Like get out of here. Like, come on, bro.
I think by default, maybe Buttigieg would get an L from me because I think really if there was a grade, I would give him an eh. I would give him an eh.
Yeah, but we have to give him an L.
Yeah. So I think the rest of the other candidates, you know, Booker had maybe one or two good moments.
Yeah, it didn't seem like he had like a lot of talk time. He had a lot of rebuttals.
He did.
He tried to play that peacekeeper.
Oh, too many times did he try to
like
do
that? Don't
Let's
attack each other.
unite.
Let's unite. I'm like,
we have to be nice to each other, and you know, it's all about
unity,
love, and good feelings, and civility. And I'm like, sorry, no.
Yeah, he played that role too hard.
Julian Castro, he had a couple good moments as well, but not enough, you know, to actually make up any ground. I think. You know what? One guy that I think may have been in the W column.
Let me guess. I already know what you're gonna say. I'm gonna see. Let me see who's left. I already know. I have two.
All right.
Yang.
Yeah.
That was my first guess of what you're gonna say. So I was right.
Yeah, you're
okay,
right. Yeah.
All right. My second guess would have been O'Rourke, but
but
my first guess was Yang.
It's Yang. I think he had a. I think most of the time that I heard him speak, I was like, yeah. I mean,
he was on message. Yeah. I will say. I think
he had more time to speak in this debate as well.
He had more time to speak, and like, I think his message can be refined. Like I said, there were a lot of things I agree with, even though he clashed on with Bernie on a couple of things. I think those things could be tweaked, where maybe his proposal could kind of, you know, mesh with Bernie's. Because I do think he has the right idea about automation, but like Elizabeth Warren brought up, there's another side to that.
Right.
And that's we're losing jobs because of outsourcing.
Yeah.
And so we can deal with that, but then deal with the fact that automation is a reality. So I kind of agree with him.
You know, go ahead.
No. I like I said, I would only be kind of reiterating what I said after we watched the clips anyway. So.
Okay. Really, you know, I'll break it down like this. I'll break it down in, you know, the 3 winners, 3 losers, really. And everybody else is really...
Everybody just like a wash.
So, like I said, I think Bernie's a winner. I think Tom Steyer for what he did. Not saying that, he's going to catapult himself up to the top now. I just think for what he did, and this being his first debate and his messaging, I think he did himself some favors. So I would put him in the winning column. And also Andrew Yang, I would put in the winning column as well.
All right,
so those
Yang,
are the top 3.
Steyer, and Sanders.
Yang. Well, yeah, Yang, Steyer, and Sanders, yeah.
Okay, so you already put a Warren in the L column.
I put Warren in the L column.
That's one. Biden.
I put Biden in the L column. So you...
I already know. Nobody knows. Except me.
You know what's coming.
I already know what's coming.
You know what's coming, right?
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S.
Yep, stop right there. Stop right there. Yeah, it's so Representative Tulsi Gabbard. Oh yeah, she's getting a big fat up.
TG.
Oh, she's getting a big fat. I think
TG the Dove.
This wasn't her best performance. There were definitely some things that she said that were right on message. And
No doubt.
I definitely agreed with.
Yeah.
But her constant strategy of straddling the fence and just blaming everybody and just repositioning questions, even though you agree with what you're disagreeing with, or you disagree with, it's confusing. You bring in the narrative that's not present here. You're saying like, hey, we shouldn't go after impeachment because of hyper-partisan issues. That's not the issue right here.
Tear
because
people apart.
Yeah, because you said you agree with it, so it's not hyper-partisan. But hey, if Trump, gets exonerated, that only stands to benefit him, and so we should really be kidding. That would be bad, and we shouldn't do it. I'm like, I don't know where you're at. So like I said, she was just all over the place on the subject of Syria as well, just talking out of both sides of her mouth, and then the very transparent and just disgusting attempt to just hit CNN just for whatever and try to make it as so that CNN was trying to protect Elizabeth Warren, who was on the assault all night long, was challenged all night long. But in this one moment, before you even mentioned Elizabeth Warren's name, you were being called like, hey, your time is up. And then you mentioned Elizabeth Warren's name, and now you're going to frame that as CNN trying to protect Elizabeth Warren. Again, we can all talk about media platforms. We could talk about these corporate media platforms and organizations, CNN, MSNBC,
How massively
Washington
flawed
Post,
they are.
yeah, the New
massively
York Times.
biased.
We could have all the criticism in the world. We do have many, many different criticisms for these different organizations. But this one wasn't it. You manufactured this one and it was so phony. Yeah. Anybody could have seen that.
It's almost like trying to frame a criminal. Like there's somebody that's already has evidence against them. And they've already been branded as a criminal. Like you don't have to frame them. That wasn't necessary. But again, we both think it was because she was desperate. And she needs to make herself into a sympathetic figure because, again, why would you need to do that if you felt you performed well on the debate stage? Again, and this was the first debate where I thought she stumbled a lot. I don't recall her stumbling at all in those other debates. It just seemed like she was stumbling. Like she said, let the turkey in.
Yeah, he did.
She did. Whoa, I was like, oh. And I think she was very conscious of that stumbling, which makes it worse. Like when you are not conscious of it, you just keep going. When you're conscious of it and you know you're stumbling,
more stumbles
happen. And she made a few good points in general, especially when it came to the military-industrial complex and like our involvement in regime change wars in general. That's like that's one of those things where I was like, okay, that's in her wheelhouse all the time. That's her signature talking point. So, okay, what do you have after that? When it comes to specifics, this is where she leaves a lot to be desired. Specifics. Hey, we want specifics on what you would do, not just straddle the fence saying, hey, this is kind of wrong, this is kind of wrong too. So,
and everybody's wrong here.
I was like, nah, you can't get away with that. And I say disappointed, but I mean, I kind of am.
But it's expected at this point because she has implemented this strategy many times.
Yeah, I know. I just wish she would get beyond it, and then I can actually trust her. But again, if you just watch the debate and watch the other debates, aside from a few points, like about her readiness to serve as commander-in-chief because of her military experience and her foreign policy, I guess the leadership she would have in foreign policy. Aside from that, like when issues come up, whether it be on the debate stage or when issues come up when there's something that's in the news and she offers a response like impeachment or Syria or immigration, anything like that, like how does she address those things? We can use those things as some sort of like indicator or barometer, right? Because if she addresses these issues in that way on an everyday basis, how is she going to address like policy discussions if she becomes president? Is she going to be wishy-washy in the same way? And at the end, didn't they ask some stupid ass question? They centered the whole Ellen DeGeneres shit.
Yeah, that was the last question.
That was the last question. Now, I didn't like that being a question because they could have talked about other things like climate change.
Yeah.
But the question only becomes stupid based on the answers that are given, right? They could actually went to a good place, but it did seem like they all were scared. Like, you know, like why are you asking? First of all, the question centered on Ellen DeGeneres and her take on Bush. Why not just keep it there? Why make it about them? Who is a friend that you have that everybody thinks will be surprised or something?
Yeah, like a surprising relationship that you have.
I was like, surprising relationship? I was like, you're talking about Bush, a war criminal. He started a war under false pretenses. He established a enhanced interrogation detention camp. He kind of stole an election.
Yeah.
So, like, if it was centered around Ellen DeGeneres and George Bush, I wish it would have stayed there. And actually, that would have been a good question to answer for those candidates, because it's not just about, to me, oh, I have a difference in opinion with somebody.
Yeah, that's, again,
genocide,
it goes way deeper than that.
Yeah, genocide is not an opinion.
Right. Torture programs.
Yeah, and I didn't actually, the only reason why I want to focus on it, even though I think it was a stupid question, Tulsi Gabbard's answer was whack.
Oh.
Tulsi Gabbard, because again, it was about Ellen DeGeneres and George Bush. And she made it like, hey, you know, there's a saying, aloha, it means this, it means forgiveness, it means blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, respect. And I'm like, wow, you're kind of tone deaf here. You could have used that opportunity to talk about, you know, like the reality of what our government and leaders in our government like are actually doing,
which would be in our wheelhouse.
Will be in our wheelhouse, and not focus on this line of kind of fake personality of, I don't know, like, oh yeah, we're all friends and we have to just deal with it and be feeling. You sound like Joe Biden, actually.
Even though she abhors the military-industrial complex.
You sound like Joe Biden. I'm just like yeah. Don't we all have, you know, one of those friends that you know, starts wars under false pretenses and establishes a torture camp and, you know, drones people. We all have one of those friends, don't we? I'm like,
so
no,
she abhors the situation that has been ever present with the military-industrial context, and that's waging war in multiple different regions across the globe. But she can be friends with the people that are actually engaging in that effort. Doesn't look right. Doesn't look right.
It doesn't look right. It just, it's like, again, her rationale is what I question, because with the impeachment thing, she didn't just make a comment at this debate. She made a comment on Facebook too. She was talking about how, you know, if Trump is impeached, like if he's found guilty of crimes, then that'll cause a civil war and it will tear countries apart. The conversation tears people apart. She said that same thing with impeachment, and she said the same thing about the Ellen DeGeneres situation. It tears people apart. So we just civility, respect everybody's viewpoints and opinions. Because if we don't, nobody can be criticized, because it tears people apart. You know what else tears people apart? Immigration policy and drones. Drone strike, that tears people apart too.
But she criticized people. She wanted to criticize Warren, but CNN got in the way. Damn CNN. Tara Brate said...
Literally tears people apart.
Tara Brate said that she was attacking CNN because of what happened with Bakari Sellers, I believe. Let me find...
That was Bakari Sellers.
Hold on. He said she hit CNN because their guy, Bakari Sellers, called her Russian asset earlier that day on TV. Which he did. Yeah, she addressed that on TV. And look, Bakari Sellers is whack. If anybody saw that clip, yeah, he said... I can't remember the exact word choice he used, but I think he may have said unquestionably that she is a Russian asset. And I mean, it was like he was trying to be daring. It was like he was trying to be very provocative with his language and just daring anybody like question that. No, she is a Russian asset. So I think that's very, very whack. I think she has definitely grounds to be upset with that. That nobody really. On that panel, nobody really challenged it, and they may have questioned it. They may have said, whoa, well, they're definitely not going to, frame it that way at the debate, and that's pretty strong language. And, but nobody really pushed back on, man, look, you don't even have any evidence of that. Like, how could you say that? You know, so it was definitely whack, and I get that she is
already
upset
addressed
with
it,
that
though.
narrative.
But she already addressed it
She
in
already
the
addressed
debate,
it.
so that's just kind of weird. Like, why would you hit CNN on something that's actually false? That still makes no sense. Like, why would you want to get back at them? It's
hit CNN on something that is true. Like, where they need to be criticized, criticize them on that. Don't make up something like they were trying to protect Elizabeth Warren, even though, again, she was challenged all night long, and there is just no validity to the argument that that they were trying to protect her given that situation.
But it wasn't just a hit on CNN, though. It was a hit on a Warren, too.
Yeah.
So how do you reconcile that? Even if you're going to say, well, she was just trying to get back at CNN. That sounds like a very, I don't know, like a Nico-esque type answer. And everything is permissible because these people are bad. You can lie, you can misrepresent something, you can, present a false narrative because, hey, they're bad. So it doesn't matter. You can be dishonest and disingenuous. It doesn't matter because CNN is bad and she was just hitting them back. But she was hitting Warren too because Warren was kind of in that. What did Warren do to her?
Right. That final question, though, one last thing about that. Biden, I believe, Biden was the last one to respond, saying that, I guess the surprising relationship that he brought up McCain, which that's not a surprising relationship because I think they're very closely related, politically and everything. I'm not surprised by that relationship. But really, what I wanted him to say was Fred Upton. I wanted him to talk about Fred Upton.
There. Was it Illinois?
Yeah, no.
Indiana?
It was Michigan.
Michigan.
Yeah. I wanted him to bring up Fred Upton. His pal that he
stumped for.
He stumped
right
for.
Before the midterm.
Yeah, right before the midterms, he went to Michigan and got paid for his appearance and trying to promote the reelection of Fred Upton, the Republican.
Anti-ACA.
The far-right anti-ACA, anti-abortion, anti-climate change, far-right Republican. He showed up for that guy. Why didn't you bring up that relationship? Now, of course, he's not going to do that. I mean, I'm just
surprised
waiting.
that somebody else has
I'm just waiting for somebody to do it. Do it. Somebody. Find the opportunity. Find that lane and bring up the name Fred Upton.
If we know, we don't get paid to look up stuff. If we know, somebody knows.
Somebody got
on these other campaigns.
Somebody got to know, man. If Trump is so bad, if his ideology is so dangerous, and you're trying to get this dangerous guy and his awful politics out of office, why would you stump for somebody that is similar to Donald Trump? Maybe not in style, but in politics and in ideology, they're one and the same. Why would you stump for a guy like that when you frame Trump as so dangerous? Not just because of his tongue and the way he just styles himself, but his actual policies. Somebody needs to take that. Somebody needs to hit.
Maybe they waiting to the end.
Biden needs to be hit over the head with that. And not only that he showed up, but he showed up for money too. He showed up for money.
Oh, that's right. So it wasn't like best buds. This is just my pal.
No. What was it, 200?
200K.
I think it was 200K, right?
Yeah, 200K.
All right. So again, so we'll go to what Bernie Sanders was alluding to during the debate, this big rally that he's having this weekend in Queens, New York, and that there's going to be a special guest, right? So after the debate, some news was announced, some endorsements were announced. So the first endorsement that we're going to talk about came in the form of a video. So we're going to play that video for you.
I am so proud to endorse Senator Bernie Sanders for president. Senator Bernie Sanders is the only candidate that has built a movement and continues to build a movement that transcends gender, ethnicity, religion, and we know that in order to take on Trump, we're going to need a unifier, someone who understands what the fight looks like, and someone who is ready to defeat him. I'm one of the people that was inspired by the movement that the senator has built. There was an America that I dreamed about. There's an America that most people believe in. It is an ideal. It's not reality yet. And he started the work of organizing for that America, and that has inspired me to get involved and run myself to help others also organize for that America. One of the amazing things I think about the senator is that he understands we have to find solutions to our greatest problems. We don't wait for what the poll numbers are on proposing a particular solution. The senator is the only candidate that is proposing a complete cancellation of student debt. The senator is the only candidate that is proposing to provide universal school meals. The senator is the only candidate that wants to make sure that we end our endless wars and will fight for human rights and hold everyone accountable regardless of whether they are an ally or a foe. The senator is someone who understands that our movement isn't just for few, it's for everyone. The senator is the only candidate that isn't about leaning a particular way, but being true to yourself and fighting for what you believe regardless of what the obstacles are. This is not just the fight for our lives, this is the fight for our democracy. This is the fight for a better future, one that we can all be proud of.
Well, that was a very riveting endorsement.
It was.
I don't, you know what? I don't like to call it an ad or a commercial. I don't like to call it that. That was a kind of a declaration or a testimonial. That's what that was. That was an endorsement testimonial.
Right.
And I'm not surprised. I don't know why people are.
No.
Oh, I won't get to that yet.
No, not yet, not yet. But no, I'm not surprised. But again, it is official. Representative Ilhan Omar is on the team. She's on the team.
She's on the team.
She's on the
man.
team.
She's on the team.
So also, there was another endorsement, right? And this one, I don't think it's been official yet, or I mean, it's looked at as official. I don't think she has made an announcement as of yet. Maybe I'm wrong, I'm not sure. But Representative Rashida Tlaib, she reportedly is going to endorse Bernie Sanders as well.
She's just waiting.
Yes.
Till like an event or something?
I believe so. So yeah, I believe that announcement is forthcoming. So again, Representative Tlaib is on the team. She's on the team. Now, another one that is reported to be endorsing Senator Bernie Sanders is no doubt the biggest name, and that's Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the representative from New York. So, that's fine. So yes, AOC is reportedly going to endorse Bernie Sanders. She is going to be the special guest that he was alluding to at this Queen's event this weekend in New York. So that, like I said, this is that's huge news. Huge news.
Huge.
I know that a lot of people were waiting for this, and I agree. This is not surprising news. These are three members from the unofficial squad that are now on the team with Bernie Sanders. I mean, you need a squad.
They're seen as the most progressive.
They are seen as the most progressive. So, like I said, it's unsurprising that they would make this decision. But still, I can understand why people were a little on edge about when and if these endorsements were going to come. And really, that has connections to 2016 and 2020. So, in 2016, actually, let me go back further, 2015. Bernie Sanders, who was not nationally recognized, I don't believe he was known on a very on a national scale. He wasn't a celebrity figure or anything like that. But Bernie Sanders wanted Senator Elizabeth Warren, to run for president. She did not want to run. She did not enter the race. So Bernie Sanders got involved. He entered the race, and he challenged Hillary Clinton for the Democratic nomination. Now, everybody just assumed that Elizabeth Warren would just endorse Bernie Sanders because back then she was like the progressive staple. I mean, everybody knew she was a strong progressive. She was the noted progressive. So there's no way she was going to endorse Hillary Clinton because that would seem like that ran counter to what she was actually about. So everybody was just waiting. Okay, look, it's coming at some point, but it's just not here yet. So when it just did not come, people assumed that before that Massachusetts primary, that's when she would make her mark. That's when she would actually stand up and get behind Bernie Sanders. Didn't happen. Bernie Sanders lost Massachusetts, and you can't say that it was because of that, but it definitely could have helped. She won by a small percentage. It could have helped. We don't know to what degree, but it's bad. It's a bad look that she stood on the sidelines and didn't, end up endorsing him. It's a really bad look.
So what you're saying is, this kind of reflects on this moment a little bit.
This, for more reasons than one, though, because again, we want people to stand behind their ideology. We want people to be honest and actually stand up for what's right, especially if you're progressive, because we know how hard it is to be a progressive. We know how hard it is to actually get progressive policies implemented. We know how hard that fight is. So when you are that, and there's a candidate that is expressing those beliefs that are really trying to run on a platform like that, a progressive platform, you need to be strong and loud behind that candidate.
You need to build a coalition.
You do. Elizabeth Warren didn't do that. And so that's why I'd say it has connections to this day and this moment, because Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, again, these are noted strong progressives. And so, again, it would be unsurprising that they would ride for Bernie Sanders in this moment. They would ride for Bernie Sanders in 2020 because he is the progressive candidate. He is the one that is unafraid. He is the one that is pushing forward a very progressive platform. So it is unsurprising that they would show up for him, but still, people just were on edge because of what happened with Elizabeth Warren in 2016. So I just find it very interesting that, not that I wouldn't put it like they did the right thing. They did the thing that makes the most sense for them. If they are true to what they are, like if whatever they are and whatever they have been projecting in the short time that we have known them, if that is true about them, then really there was only one candidate for them to endorse. And they ended up doing it because they were being true to themselves. Elizabeth Warren failed to do that in 2015 and in 2016. I think that says a lot about her, and I think this decision by these three freshman congresswomen say all that we need to know about them.
Yeah, and if, people take issue with it, people take issue with these endorsements and wonder why they didn't endorse Elizabeth Warren, they should ask themselves why. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. I agree.
If they're doing, man, centrist Twitter or liberal centrist Twitter is mad. They are like going through the 5 stages of grief. Like, for real. Like, they're saying, it doesn't really mean anything.
We have one. This is the actress. Amber Tamblyn. She said, respectfully, there is nothing surprising or daring about AOC endorsing Sanders. Their beliefs are and always have been completely aligned, which is fine. I love AOC. But the two of them stumping together is just preaching to their own choir. That's really interesting, man.
What else would they be doing? That's what their job is. Their job is they're representatives. Their job is to, I guess, work for their choir.
Like, what would have been the narrative from Amber Tamblyn had AOC endorsed Elizabeth Warren? Would she have just said, would she have just summarily dismissed it and said that, hey, this is not news. All she's going to be doing is thumping to her own choir with Elizabeth Warren. They already got these people. So, no. She would be saying, oh my gosh, this is huge news. And look, Warren's going to win. And this is so indicative of a winning campaign. And AOC's with us. And this is
progressives supporting progressives.
It would have been huge news for Elizabeth Warren. They, again, like she said, she loves AOC. She loves AOC.
Boo. That's no, bad faith. It's bad faith. I love her. No, you don't.
Another take is from Jane Eisner, who said, I find it fascinating that women of color overlook female and minority candidates to endorse a white guy. Is identity politics over? Is ideology more important than race and gender? Genuinely curious.
Genuinely curious? The answer is like in your question. Like, first people say, hey, women, especially women of color, go your own way, make your own decisions, do what's best for you, represent who you want to represent, liberation. And then when they do it, no, not that way. Don't do it that way. Don't do it in a way that upsets my sensibilities or upsets what I think is good for you, which is actually the real racism here. And whatever identity politics that they're talking about is a very toxic one. It's one that typically white liberals or neoliberals weaponize in order to get minorities on their side. It's like, hey, you're black, she's black. Like, it's, like, come on, like, get out of here.
You gotta love it when they know how to be a person of color better than we do.
Oh, definitely. I love that.
Like, they have this criticism of, hey, you're not being black the right way. You're not being a person of color the right way. What you're supposed to do is actually show up for other people of color. And somebody made the interesting point that I believe it's Ilhan Omar. She represents a district that's 70% white. So, I mean, if it goes the way that you're talking about, wouldn't those white people, shouldn't they have voted for a white candidate? Or is identity politics over?
Over, I know.
I mean, it's like...
But what do you mean, like, is it over? Like, I don't understand that. Like, is it over? Like, she's talking about it in a very superficial, vacuous way. Like, identity politics as, like, this kind of a performance. That's how she's talking about it. She's talking about, like, performative identity politics that doesn't really help anybody. And obviously, these 3 congresswomen understand that practicing that kind of identity politics is not only toxic, it just doesn't help them or their constituents or minorities out.
When it comes to a person of color, we can't just, we can't be objective here. People of color can't be objective and when you're talking about politics, see the different candidates and actually weigh those particular candidates and what they will actually do, given what their platform is or what their stump speech is and whatever, their background, whatever you want to weigh, you're supposed to weigh. You're supposed to be objective about this whole process and actually select a candidate that meets your interest, your ideology, whatever. But for people of color, no, we can't do that. If the person that meets our ideology is somebody that's white and it's, it goes against the person of color that's in the race, well, then we're doing the wrong thing here because we should show up for other people of color. I guess no matter what that person of color is about. It doesn't matter what skin tone you have or where you come from, or what kind of accent you have, what culture you... This does not matter. There are bad seeds in every single type of ethnic group or culture, whatever.
And then if you're talking about the individuals that are bought off...
This is like that she has to ask the question about, hey, is identity politics over? Or like, I'm genuinely interested how this could happen. How could these 3 women of color choose the white guy over another woman or a person of color? I'm genuinely interested.
Even though they're not aligned on policy or beliefs or worldview. I don't know what happened here.
It would have been a good look for them to endorse Amy Klobuchar. Woman.
He's a woman.
Oh, yeah.
Even though they don't align on much.
Cory Booker. He's black. Yeah.
T-Bone. T-Bone.
It's just, we see this too many times that, these type of people, they always have some criticism over the way people of color do whatever they do. Hey, you're not being a person of color enough. You're not doing it the right way.
It's almost like she was trying to shame them in some kind of way. Like you said, you're not being black right.
Yeah.
You're not being black right.
Let me educate you about how to be black. Man, disgusting. But anyway, this is a good look. Look, again, you want a squad, okay? You have to have a squad, okay? You have to have people that, help you do anything. You know what I'm saying? Like, look, we had a squad back in high school. You know what I'm saying?
Gosh, deep.
We called it a clique or something like that. But still,
I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, but still, look, and
I know I'm not even gonna say it. Well, I just remembered it.
But in that squad, fast forward some years and years later, I mean, there's some people from that squad that I don't talk to on a regular basis. But best believe, if they need me, I'm gonna do everything I can to be there for them. Straight up, because that's squad. those are my brothers, those are my sisters, straight up. That's life right there. That's love.
No matter how long it's been.
No, hell no.
When you
No.
have like true friends, this happens all the time. Like I ain't seen this person in like 10 years. For some reason, we see each other like nothing. Yep, it's red. Oh,
Okay, I think we're
it's
back. Okay. Yeah. Look, I think YouTube's trying to kick us off.
Yeah, I know.
I think
We've
going
been
too long.
we've been
We're going
on too long.
But yeah, like I was just saying, you need a squad. I'm glad that Bernie Sanders has actual progressives riding for him. These progressives that are unafraid to be progressive and actually back the progressive in the race. Again, like, you can choose to, hold it against Warren or not for 2016, that she didn't, show up for Bernie Sanders. I think it was a horrible look. And like I said, I think the contrast is so relevant here. I mean, it's so poignant that these three progressives are so unafraid, and they get involved early in the race too. We're still early in the race, and they get involved right now. They're showing up for Bernie Sanders, who meets their ideology, who is the closest to their ideology. And Elizabeth Warren, who claims to be about that life, Elizabeth Warren, who claims to be a strong progressive and claims to have a plan for everything, and her supporters saying that she is the best progressive in the race. But she couldn't do what a progressive does, or is what a progressive is supposed to do in a presidential race, when a progressive is running for president and actually back that progressive.
I saw some so-called liberals on Twitter trying to present this case that it's actually bad for Bernie Sanders. Bad because it's going to be red meat for Trump.
Oh, please.
Trump is going to use that. I was like, so you're scared?
He's using everything.
He's using everything, and like,
please.
And actually, it might work out in his favor, actually. And whoever, that type of strategy works on, as far as Trump goes, if he does use it, who cares? And whoever it works on, it was going to work on. It's not, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Whoever it works on, they're already, they're a rock solid Trump supporter.
Would they have said the same thing if these three backed Elizabeth Warren? Trump is only going to use that. It's going to work against her. And no, these people are just so mad, M to the AD, that Elizabeth Warren was not endorsed by these three. That's just what it is. But like I said, yeah, I think it's a good move. I think it's a good look. I think this will aid him well. And really, we've talked about the health question, about the age question. I think this was good timing too, because given his performance, where I think he did answer a lot of questions, he was very vibrant, he was energetic, he was very, I don't know if I say giddy, but he was kind of playful,
Yeah.
Like I said, let his personality show. I think that answered a lot of questions. But hopefully something like this will take some of the emphasis off of that question too, like about his age and about his health. Look, like you said, I think it's relevant to discuss, but only to a degree. He had a health problem. Looks like it's been taken care of. He's back on track. He's back on the trail.
So now he has the blood is more efficiently flowing through him and to his brain.
Yep.
So
watch out.
Super Bernie.
Watch out. Watch out. So yeah, like I said, yeah, it's a good look, and I'm looking forward to that event this weekend in Queens. Should be a scene. It will be definitely talked about.
I will say though, just the image of a Bernie bro has just changed. Like, these three Bernie bros just I don't know. They don't
fit the mold.
They don't fit the mold for some reason.
Of a Bernie bro. Yeah. I don't think they've ever been categorized as Bernie bros. But now, I guess we gotta adapt. Gotta adapt. Yeah.
Bro S's.
Bro S's. But yeah, man.
Bernie bras.
Bernie bras. Bernie bras. That would be funny, man. But yeah, man. It's like I said, it's a good look. I'm glad that these three, like I said, given their politics, given who they are and who they have always said that they are, there was only one way to go, and we all knew it. But again, because of Elizabeth Warren, a lot of people were like, ugh, are they gonna do it? And if they do, if they do it, like when are they gonna do it?
When are they gonna do it? Yeah, no, we were talking about that.
Are they gonna be Elizabeth Warren? You know, people are already, you know, even right before Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez took office, they were already questioning her. Oh, she's backing Pelosi for Speaker of the House, and oh, you know, she's same old. She's not really progressive. This and that.
I know what you got to say now. What you got to say now?
What you got to say now?
I wonder what Jimmy Dore has to say. Jimmy.
Yeah, he had some criticism of AOC, didn't he?
He went off, man.
Yeah, he sure did. But anyway, yeah, that's the. I think that's the. That's what we got. That's the essence of all of our analysis.
Don't make me play the song. I see you in the chat. Don't make me play the song. I'll play the song.
Cut her off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she has said that at least 3 or 4 times throughout this stream. Now you guys breaking up with Tulsi. I have already thrown her away. I'm sorry, I've already done that. I've already thrown her away.
Lisa said that a particular person might be after us if we keep talking about her.
I think what she said, his superwoman or something like that.
I know what you're talking about. I'm not your superwoman. See, that's some like.
What's that, Karen White?
Karen White, 80s R&B.
Yeah. I haven't seen it, but I'm sure a particular individual made a video about Bakari Sellers. I'm sure of it.
Pretty sure it's probably about 30 minutes long.
I'm sure of it.
Even though what he said, it was real brief.
Oh, yeah.
And
it
was
whack.
It was whack.
It was definitely
but
whack.
You know he got about 30 minutes out of that.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He only need a little bit. You know him, man.
I do wonder. I don't wonder. But, well, you know, I wonder how he will frame the whole CNN saved Warren.
Oh, no. It's going to be framed in the same way that Tulsi's framed it. I promise you that.
But that's absolutely false.
Doesn't matter. She's right. Always. Regardless. Unconditionally. Unconditional love. Isn't that what we're all looking for? See, it's getting late. See, now it's getting late.
That's ridiculous. Right? Oh, boy. This guy said, I'm a Bernie chick. Yeah, man.
Give me a Bernie chick. See, y'all don't know about that. That juvenile. That's that like 90s.
Oh, man. Yeah, man. Look, we had fun tonight. We're glad that everybody joined us. We will be back tomorrow night. Like I said, this was a special edition. We, of course, were not going to broadcast last night because of the debate, because of the timing. But we will be back tomorrow night. You know, quick turnaround. 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. There's a lot going on in the way of this whole Trump inquiry, this impeachment inquiry.
Like, y'all might want to pay attention to it. Pay attention to the reactions of the Republicans, too. I saw Jim Jordan's reaction after coming out of a hearing. He was tight-lipped. He didn't want to say what went on in there. We know Jim Jordan is not afraid to be heard. So that's his body language is like, shit, man, there's some stuff went on in there that I don't want to, put out there because it was going to make us look bad. Guarantee you if he kind of heard some favorable things that were in his favor, he would have been saying it. But he says, I'm not going to say anything because of rules. He doesn't practice rules.
There's a lot going on, man. There's a lot.
Like Rudy Giuliani is pretty much.
Rudy Giuliani, boy.
He
dead
is,
man walking.
Yeah, dead man walking. He was he set up a shadow government. Well, it was bankrolled by 2 criminals, like crazy, and doing work for Trump in various ways. That's some crazy stuff, man.
We'll get to as much as we can tomorrow. But like I said, that conversation is very extensive. I doubt that we'll be able to get to everything.
Nope. Because we are so. We got to debate stuff. It's been so much building up,
but our senator Lindsey Graham, boy, that mug got that mug got. That mug got, man. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. Super chat. We got Ben in the super chat. Ben out front, and with a message to everybody out there: become a patron supporter. LTMB with monthly pledge. We appreciate that, Ben. And we will put the little graphic on the screen for anybody that does want to become a patron. You just have to go to patreon.com/LTMB. We definitely do appreciate all the support. Look, we're trying to get to a certain point, get to a certain status. We're trying to get a lot more eyes on us, a very, much bigger audience. We're trying to do some things. I think we have the right narratives. I think we lead with the truth, no doubt. We discuss facts. We let those guide us. I think we have a lot to offer. So, like I said, we just need to get more eyes on us and, welcome more people into this community. And that is what we're trying to do. We're trying to build something here.
And since this was a special broadcast, that means our audience is special.
No doubt, no doubt. And we do, look, we are trying to task you, too, with making sure that our voices are illuminated. So whatever you can do, we definitely appreciate that. We appreciate all the financial support that you give us. We do appreciate everything that you do in terms of calling in to the show, voicing all of your concerns or just whatever take that you have in the chat section, questions, comments, all of that, interacting with each other, and definitely sharing our material whenever you can, wherever you can. We appreciate that all because that's really what we're after here. Like I said, we need to be seen by more people. Like I said, that's the goal here. So whatever you can do, we definitely appreciate it. So with that, we're going to bid you adieu, call it a good night. Approaching 11 o'clock.
Yeah, gotta do this again tomorrow.
We're going to do this again tomorrow night.
7 o'clock.
Yeah, well, most likely we'll have some time for callers. So be prepared for that if you do have a question or a comment, maybe related to tonight's or last night's debate or anything that we'll have to talk about tomorrow. Please feel free to call in and we'll be sure to get you on. But again, with that, we're going to be out. See you tomorrow night in under 24 hours.
I know, right? Under 24 hours, that is right. Damn.
Under 24 hours, we're going to see you again. That's something new right there. But anyway, peace out, everybody. LTMB out.